Chapter 382. Offend me? How could he offend me with his insignificant skills? I just don't like him. That's all. His previous voice actually sounded a little embarrassed, but he quickly recovered and said, "Don't you think that he's putting on an act with his playboy face? I think it's fake. I think it's disgusting, and I want to beat him up. Only by ruthlessly teaching him a lesson will you feel comfortable. Teaching him a lesson every day will you feel satisfied." The other voice didn't make a sound for a long time. It was obvious that it was shocked. "Is this the tone of our big sister?" After a long time, the second voice said, "Then what are you going to do, big sister? Anyway, the purpose of this trip is to travel the world. So, it's better to follow them for a while. Didn't you hear Dongfang Wenqing say that she's going to take him to the secret place of the Dongfang family? Presumably, we'll be separated from the Jun family's army. When that time comes, watch how I deal with him. It won't be too much as long as I don't kill him." The first voice snorted. "Then why didn't you stop Duga Xiaoyi from doing such a ridiculous thing today, big sister?" The clear voice was very puzzled. He was drugged. "If we had stopped him at that time, he would have suffocated to death. Wouldn't that be more interesting?" "Suffocating to death is more interesting. These two women are really more ruthless than the other. These two mysterious and powerful women are really tough." "Stop? Why should we stop?" The cold voice that had spoken earlier once again had a trace of embarrassment in it. "Qian Sun, although you and I are, but we've been women ever since we took human form. This kind of scandal, how can we stop it? Of course, killing him is as easy as lifting a finger, but stopping him, in any case, we can't do anything." "You're right, big sister. I understand now. We really shouldn't have interfered." The clear voice belonged to the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. At this moment, she also thought of this and couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Also, even though this person is hateful and needs to be taught a lesson, he still has some good points to learn from. Death is not necessary. The previous voice snorted and said, "Let's not talk about anything else. The matter of the sacred fruits pill transaction might fall on his shoulders. Didn't you hear Solitary Eagle say that the mysterious man who had suddenly appeared was his master? And, according to the evidence you've presented, isn't that the person who vowed to exchange the spirit pills for the sacred fruit?" "Exactly. I almost forgot." The Qian Sun Serpent Queen's eyes lit up. "Then, we'll have a lot of assurance. But that mysterious man's strength is unfathomable. I still feel a lingering fear in my heart when I think about that astonishing strength. Even Big Sister may not be able to win against that man. Yes, I met that mysterious man that day, and we didn't really fight. But the method he used to kill Li Jutian was very good. In fact, I can't even compare to him. I still can't figure out what kind of unique skill he used. Even the legendary Samadhi True Fire of the Celestial Beings is nothing more than that. It would be best if we don't make an enemy out of such an expert. But we only need to control this boy. And the spirit pills won't be able to run away from him because of his disciple. At the very least, we'll have a trump card in our hands. The person who had just spoken was the Venerable Mei of Tian Fa. So, we mustn't be careless. I've heard that they're going to the Dongfang family for several matters. But one of them is the pledge of the Dongfang family. We're leaving Tian Fa. So, it's tantamount to breaking half of the Dongfang family's pledge. So, the only thing left is the collapsing snow mountain. So, we'll have to plan something. But this is still a very interesting matter. So, that's how it is. So, Big Brother has thought of so many things. Big Brother is worthy of being called Big Brother. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen smiled. Then, shall we follow him and watch the fun? Watch the fun? That's not necessarily true. Perhaps we'll have the opportunity to join in the fun. The Venerable Mei smiled gently. There was a moment of silence, and the two of them didn't speak anymore. It seemed as if they had never existed. If anyone had been watching from the side, they would have been surprised to find that no one had appeared even though they had spoken. In fact, the branches of the trees hadn't even swayed from beginning to end. Right now, Jun Moxie was in a very sorry state. he was in a very sorry state. The moment he entered the tent, he saw a slim figure standing in front of the bed in a daze, just like a beautiful statue. Guan Qinghan. Guan Qinghan was expressionless. Her face was as cold as usual. She looked at the bed in a daze. She was holding a piece of cloth in her hand. It was the tattered clothes under her body. On it was the symbol of her chastity. She was wearing the white robe that originally belonged to June Moxie. It was rather loose, and it made her slender waist look even more alluring. Her expression was a little complicated. It was sorrowful, shy, lost, and a little disappointed. Hearing that June Moxie had come in, Guan Qinghan's delicate body trembled slightly. Her face reddened, but she didn't turn around. Her face became exceptionally pale. June Moxie stopped behind her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They just listened to each other's breathing in silence. Although the two of them were only a foot away from each other, it felt like they were separated by the distance between heaven and earth. This pair of man and woman, who had just had the most intimate relationship, were like two strangers at this moment. The atmosphere in the tent suddenly became very oppressive, abnormally oppressive. After a long time, June Moxie suddenly chuckled. He abruptly sat on the wooden chair behind Guan Qinghan. Looking at Guan Qinghan's back, June Moxie seemed to be talking to himself. I know that your heart is very complicated now, and you're also very confused. You don't know what to do in the future. You don't even know what to do next. Guan Qinghan's body trembled. Actually, I don't know what to do either. I'm really confused, June Moxie said slowly. Guan Qinghan's delicate body trembled. She couldn't help but turn her head. She wanted to turn around, but she forced herself to turn back. You don't know what to do? Then what can a little girl like me do? June Moxie used a slow tone to explain the whole matter from the beginning to the end. Guan Qinghan finally understood why Duge Xiaoyi's behavior was so strange these 2 days. She couldn't help but sigh when she heard the last part. This matter was really a freak accident. It was too coincidental. It turned out that she was just an innocent bystander. But June Moxie continued speaking. He seemed to have made up his mind. He said it all in one breath, but I only know that this matter was an accident. Although many coincidences came together, whether you are willing or not, there is only one fact. That is, no matter what your identity was before this, and no matter whether you admit it now or not, you are now my woman. This is a fact that cannot be changed. This is something that cannot be changed. It will not be changed by the change of time and space. June Moxie said slowly and clearly. But it was also very domineering. But this unusual domineering didn't make Guan Qinghan feel disgusted. Instead, it made her feel inexplicably settled. It was as if she had received a promise. As June Moxie spoke, his voice gradually became firm. It may not be easy to be my woman. But as long as you are my woman, I will cherish, love, and protect you at all costs. I will never let you suffer any grievances. Maybe you are not ready now. I can give you time to think about it. June Moxie said slowly, You and I both know that the engagement between you and my eldest brother is just a piece of paper. No, it's not even a piece of paper. Now, you are no longer my sister-in-law. You are just my third uncle's adopted daughter. I hope you remember this identity clearly. There may be a lot of troubles when we are together in the future. There may also be a lot of rumors. But you don't have to worry about these. June Moxie smiled and said, These are all men's affairs. Even if the whole world is filled with such rumors and slanders, I can guarantee that not a single word of it will reach your ears. Not even a word. Do you understand? So, the thing that you are worried about doesn't exist. Guan Qinghan's shoulders moved a little. She seemed to have relaxed her body. After such a long time, I believe that you should understand my temper. I won't become a great hero. In fact, I am a very selfish person. In this world, there are not many people and things that I care about. I only care about my loved ones, my family, my women, and my brothers. As long as they are safe and happy, other things are not important. As for other things, whether it is the people's misfortune or happiness, it has nothing to do with me, June Moxie. I am not a noble person. Jun Moxie laughed mischievously. He continued to speak with fervor and assurance. If you hope that I can create some great achievements, I'm afraid that I will disappoint you. Because I am very selfish. I am not destined to become a hero. In fact, I am so selfish that nobody should think about bullying my people or making things difficult for my women. As long as there is such a thing, then no matter who he is, he will suffer the cruelest revenge from me, Jun Moxie, including your Guan family, because the list of people that I care about doesn't include them. Guan Qinghan finally couldn't hold back anymore. She suddenly turned around and bit her lips. Her eyes were sparkling with a complicated expression. She looked at Jun Moxie's calm face. Her lips moved for a while, but she didn't say anything. She had already thought about how her family would look at her if this matter was spread out. She knew what kind of supercilious looks she would have to endure. As long as she thought about all this, her heart would become unusually flustered. It was a kind of panic that she didn't know what to do. But as soon as Jun Moxie said these words in an unusually calm tone, Guan Qinghan suddenly felt a chill in her heart. Not only was she no longer worried about herself, but she was instead worried about them. She could imagine how Jun Moxie would react if someone from the Guan family was disrespectful to her. Moreover, the Shui Hun manor had forced a marriage. It could be said that Jun Moxie's impression of the Guan family was very bad. Jun Moxie would not be lenient. Recommending a new book, Zhao Feng obtained a 5 elements devouring spirit pill and thus embarked on an extraordinary road of martial cultivation. Zhao Feng was mistakenly regarded as a descendant of a demonic sect. Countless families, forces, and empires sent their experts to hunt him down and even encircled him. However, Zhao Feng didn't care. This guy was fierce, overbearing, cruel, cunning, lecherous, and dissolute. He led a group of brothers who had gone through life and death with him. He occupied a large group of beautiful women. He killed people who stood in his way and killed Buddhas who stood in his way. After countless battles and endless killings, he finally stepped on piles of corpses to reach the pinnacle of martial cultivation in the mountain river mainland. Lonely Swordsman's new book, The Proud Smiling Mountain and River. Chapter 383. Today's outbreak. The first update has arrived. Today is the 7th, and this is the 4th outbreak of this month. Brothers, please give me some face. I'll be very grateful for a few more tickets. All the major families were using their own methods to deal with this rumor. The other family candidates were very confident in themselves, but they were still somewhat anxious and uneasy. Although this rumor had disappeared in a flash, but they had begun to move in accordance with the principle that it was better to believe it than to not believe it. Therefore, they had begun to move even more frequently. There were also some people who were aware that this rumor was false. But they still intended to take advantage of this opportunity to promote their sons or fathers to the top. Therefore, they began to secretly play games. Each family appeared peaceful on the surface, but they were surging in the dark. Each of them came in a hurry and left in a hurry. Their footsteps were like the wind. They were extremely busy, but they also acted as if they were treading on thin ice. They were afraid that they would fall into someone's trap if they weren't careful. The only families that remained unmoved were the Jun family and the Dugu family. One of these two military families didn't have many descendants. So, it didn't matter whether this rumor was spread or not. So, it didn't affect them in any way. The other family was like a discus. Even if mercury were to pour down, it wouldn't be able to get through. However, even the two great clans that were not affected were only internally stable. Many of their former generals and former subordinates had dispersed because of this storm. Moreover, the treatment of the disciples of these two great clans was also very different from the treatment of other clans. They would only act when there was conclusive evidence. So, the two families wouldn't have the opportunity to reverse the verdict. So, they could only preserve their lives and be banished far away. The Murong, Meng, Song, and Tang families were the giants of Tianxiang City. The elders of each family were bedridden because of this storm. The younger generations of their families appeared to be respectful and obedient on the surface. But they were secretly plotting against each other. This had caused the elders to expend a lot of effort. The other clan that was relatively peaceful was the Li clan. With a great genius like Li Yu ran around, the other clans didn't dare to compete with him. They had been suppressed by Li Yu ran while they were still budding. Therefore, the rumor that the contestants were the heirs of the clan was the least harmful to the Li clan among the other clans. Of course, not all forces were affected by this storm. For example, Tang Yuan had been managing the aristocratic hall during this period of time and had been focusing on its own development. It could be said that the aristocratic hall had made great profits and had been prospering with each passing day. They had held several auctions in a row and had made a lot of money every time. Jun Moxie had given Fatty Tang a few bottles of elixirs before he left. Fatty Tang's business methods were truly outstanding. He had used these elixirs as a starting point, and the results of the first auction had caused a sensation in the capital. Fatty began his limited purchase in the second match. Each type of pill was only sold for 20 pills, and each person could only bid for 5 pills at most. Moreover, as the base price of the auction got higher and higher, more and more guests came from all over the world. Perhaps it was because of the high price of paper in Luoyang. The base price of the elixirs and the final price were getting higher and higher, but there was still an endless stream of people coming to buy them. There was basically no one in the aristocratic hall who was willing to throw away thousands of gold. Fatty had even given the elixirs a few pleasant-sounding and eye-catching names. He had called the mysterious Yang elixir, Golden Spear Cannot Fall, Invigorates Yang, Invigorates Kidneys, Mighty and Sturdy, 5,000 kilograms hanging, Thunderbolt Mysterious Yang Elixir. This name sounded like an aphrodisiac. It was 10 times more powerful than the 500 kilograms hanging. There was a poem that said, "Young and vigorous men go to buy sex and enter the house when they are over 50 years old." Even 80 years old Mo Shang-shin still has 1,000 kilograms under his crotch. As for the minor Yin elixir, it was even more fascinating. Beauty, nourishment, beauty, heavenly fragrance, flower, moon, one elixir. Ugly woman becomes beautiful, heaven and earth turn upside down, rivers flow reverse, stars move. Love minor Yin elixir. These 2 elixirs had been given the names of vigorous pills, dog skin plasters in the Jianghu in Tang Yuan's hands. These 2 difficult-to-pronounce names were extremely eye-catching. Moreover, they were extremely vulgar names. In fact, they had been given the respectful title of Divine Elixir in the Tianxiang city. And the most outrageous thing was that there was a stutterer who had been repeating these 2 difficult-to-pronounce names every day. But his speech had slowly become fluent, and he had stopped stuttering. He hadn't even taken the pill yet, but he had been able to cure his stuttering. So, what else could it be if it wasn't a divine elixir? Fatty Tang had used his official position for personal gain. He had arranged for his fiancée, Sun Xiaomei, to come to the aristocratic hall to help him. Moreover, he had ordered Hai Chenfeng and Song Shang, the 2 great Tian Xian experts, to run around in circles. And they had complained incessantly. The 2 great experts had tried to intimidate Fatty several times in the beginning. Your entire Tang family doesn't have a single Tian Xian expert. And you dare to order us around? Who do you think you are? However, Tang Yuan had gradually figured out a way to deal with them. And that's because Tang Yuan had said something when he had been making arrangements for Hai Chenfeng. Third young master said that you're the most suitable person to handle this matter. Hai Chenfeng had immediately gone to handle this matter as soon as he had said this. Moreover, he had done it swiftly and decisively. In fact, he was afraid that he would be the slightest bit slow. This had made Fatty's heart stir. So, he had decided to use his old trick on Song Shang. And it had been very effective. Therefore, Tang Yuan had started to act like a tyrant from then on. I don't think I'm anyone. I'm Brother Xia's spokesperson in Tianxiang. I'm working for Brother Xia. So, you have to listen to my words. Otherwise, I'll tell on you. This had led to a situation where the 2 Tian Xian experts would run away whenever they saw Fatty. They wouldn't even meet him face to face. I can't afford to provoke him. But can't I just hide from him? However, Fatty still had a way to deal with this situation. He had stipulated that the two of them had to come to the aristocratic hall once a day. Then, he had prepared an office for each of them. And he had hung a piece of white paper on the door whenever there was something to do. And the first sentence on the paper would be, "Third young master said something something. As for a certain Shota, a little prince, Yang Mo, Tang Yuan certainly wouldn't let the Shota kid stay idle." His Highness had invested a large sum of money that day. And this had made Fatty Tang, who had been short of money at the time, to praise Jun Mo Xie. He had said that Jun Mo Xie really knew how to attract sponsors. However, the aristocratic hall was raking in money every day. And the prince's mansion was only waiting for the money. And this had made Tang Yuan's heart ache. He had been cursing and swearing every day. "I'm so tired that I'm almost as thin as a monkey. But I'm still supporting the prince." Tang Yuan's Fatty Tang has already forgotten his roots. He has long forgotten the difficulties of starting up a business. Moreover, he had relied on other people's money to prop up the business. He could only see his own money flowing away. It was as if his flesh was being cut off. Tang Yuan's hands were trembling. His eyes were glowing red. And his fat was also heaving up and down. There were so many twists and turns. The third young master can take as much as he wants. After all, it's his own money. But you're lying here every day eating sweets. And you're taking money too? And why are you taking so much money? Fatty Tang's heart was completely unbalanced. Therefore, Fatty Tang would have pushed away all the troublesome matters even if Jun Moxie hadn't warned him before he left. Little Yang Mo had suffered a calamity. Whenever the emperor's relatives, or even the 7 aunts or 8 aunts came, little Yang Mo would have braced himself in front of Tang Yuan's supercilious eyes. This was the imperial family's business. So, who would have done it if he hadn't? Little Yang Mo couldn't bring himself to do it. So he naturally suffered a lot. But Fatty Tang wouldn't help him pay the bill. So, he would settle the accounts with him again and again. Then, he would deduct the losses from the prince's mansion's dividends. "You're willing to pay the bill on behalf of the imperial family. You'll have face, but you won't have money." Finally, this shy little Yang Mo has finally become anxious for his own interests. The aristocratic hall is constantly being bought and sold every day. Money is flying in all directions. But there's no money for me. Sometimes I'll even have to pay the bills. How can I tolerate this? Therefore, the little Yang Mo changed. He became sharp-tongued and didn't cower. His eyes turned red every day, and he looked like a little fighting cock. He wouldn't yield a single cent. He would haggle over every little thing. Sometimes he would even ask for more. "Some elders have to give me a tip. I'm just a little kid. I'm buying small things. Isn't that enough?" But the imperial family's people are easy to talk to. So, conflicts naturally keep happening. But the little Yang Mo is impartial. He only cares about money. He even dares to collapse on the spot when his father says a few words to him. Therefore, it became very difficult for the imperial family and the imperial harem to come to the aristocratic hall to take advantage of the situation, especially when they send the servants of the prince's mansion over. Therefore, the 3 princes became furious and personally visited the aristocratic hall. They made the little Yang Mo suffer a few times, but the little Yang Mo still suffered losses. How can a small arm twist a big leg? Moreover, its 3 big legs at a banquet, Tang Yuan and Song Shang had evil intentions. They had forced the little Yang Mo to drink a few cups of wine. The little Yang Mo was very eye-catching, but his capacity for liquor wasn't very eye-catching. Moreover, the wine had entered his mind. So, he naturally recalled the words that elder brother Mo Xie had said. "Your father isn't the emperor. How can I help you? Helping you means going against the emperor's son. That's the future emperor. How can I live?" As the saying goes, wine enters one's mind. Even if you don't get drunk, you'll still get drunk. The little Yang Mo was thoroughly drunk. He was drunk, and he would be fine after a good night's sleep. But the little Yangmo's tolerance for liquor wasn't good. He directly threw a drunken tantrum. With a childish voice that hadn't changed yet, he screamed at the sky, "I want to be the emperor. Damn it. I want to be the emperor. I want to rebel. I want to be the emperor. I won't let my son be bullied." At such a young age, he already thought that his son would be bullied. Just this awareness alone was much higher than Duga Xiaoyi. He screamed for half the night. Fatty Tang was scared witless. He was scared out of his wits. But he didn't dare to retreat. He stubbornly endured for fear that his words would be heard by others. This night was undoubtedly a night of fear, panic, and terror. Even if Fatty forgot his surname, he would never forget this night. This was a great crime that could lead to the extermination of the entire family. Fatty swore on the spot that he would never force the little Yang Mo to drink again. If he forced others to drink, he would at most be drunk with them. But if he forced this kid's son to drink, he might have to pay with his life. It was too damn thrilling. Asterisk, 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 the following words were free. This chapter is automatically updated. I'm really tired. I've been working hard for the past few days. By the time everyone sees this chapter, Feng Ling might already be in a dream. 1357 consecutive outbursts, 246 guaranteed 2 chapters. This speed isn't fast, but I'm already doing my best. I saw some readers in the book review and comment section saying that single chapters require votes too many times. I'm speechless. There are many brothers who have followed me since Legend of Ling Tian. From the first day I started writing until now, I've never written a single chapter before the outburst. Even if I'm sick and in pain, I won't write a single chapter unless I explode. I respect my brothers. I respect my sisters. If I want your approval, I'll use my hard work to exchange for it. I'll use my updates to exchange for it. I won't try to gain sympathy. But once I explode, there will definitely be a single chapter asking for votes. On the 7th of this month, there will be 4 outbursts. After today, there will be another single chapter. If I explode 15 times this month, there will be 15 single chapters. I really don't think it's wrong. My brothers and I won't talk about any conditions. Just watch and click on the button to vote. If you don't like it and have any opinions, you can vent in the book review and comment section. If you feel that I'm diligent in updating, please support me. If you feel that I'm not up to your expectations, you can keep the votes. Really, I won't force any of my friends. In short, the votes are in your hands. It's up to you whether you want to vote or not. If I want it, I'll use updates to ask for it. If you don't want to vote, then even if I write 10,000 single chapters, the votes will still be in your hands. Chapter 384. Today's outbreak. The second update has been delivered. I'm a little late. Please forgive me. But you can rest assured that I'll deliver the 4th update before midnight even if I'm exhausted to death. Inside the Imperial Palace, His Majesty the Emperor was frowning. His dignified face had a hint of melancholy on it. He was pacing back and forth in a leisurely manner for a long time. Then, he suddenly exhaled a long breath. His eyes looked a little perplexed, and it seemed as if he was having a hard time making a decision. It seemed as if he was troubled by something. A lot of Xianqi experts had been spreading the news that the Jun family had the backing of a super expert. And this had made the emperor worried day and night. In fact, it had been difficult for him to relax. Brother Wen, how much of this rumor do you think is true? The emperor had received this shocking news. Moreover, it had been confirmed by countless people. But he still had some doubts in his heart. In fact, he didn't want to believe that this matter was true. Brother Wen, you must know that the tragedy of 10 years ago wouldn't have happened if such a person had been standing behind the Jun family. So, you must know that the tragedy of 10 years ago wouldn't have happened. Jun Wu Hui and Jun Wu Meng wouldn't have died. Jun Wu Yi wouldn't have been crippled. Moreover, Jun Moxie wouldn't have been the only child of the Jun family's 3rd generation. And the Silver Blizzard City wouldn't have dared to do such a thing. Therefore, I believe that there's something fishy about this matter. His Majesty the Emperor frowned, but such a person has suddenly appeared. Don't you think that it's very strange? Don't you think that this matter is just a gimmick that the June family has come up with? Is their goal to make everyone who is eyeing the June family like a tiger watching its prey dispel their intentions? Is it to ensure that the June family will continue to prosper? At least, it won't perish in June Moxie's generation. Mr. Win's face had lost its usual indifference. Instead, he was sitting with a serious expression on his face. It was obvious that he was thinking about something. First of all, how could such a peerless expert suddenly appear in this world? Moreover, there hasn't been the slightest rumor about him in the past few decades. Moreover, such an expert couldn't have appeared in this world in such a short time. Secondly, such a peerless expert would have appeared 10 or 20 years ago if there really was such a peerless expert. In fact, it wouldn't have been difficult to establish a family that's not inferior to the Silver Blizzard City or the Shuahan Manor. But the June family didn't do so. Thirdly, the tragedy that befell the June family wouldn't have happened if such a person existed. Lastly, and most importantly, even if this person was in closed-door training or traveling far away and didn't know what had happened to the June family over the past 10 years, he still didn't take any action when he reappeared in the world. I'm sure that no one would have been able to tolerate such a thing. Moreover, this expert hasn't made any moves in the past 10 years. Moreover, he's killed Li Ju-tian in a high-profile manner. But he's let the Silver Blizzard City and the Shao family off. This doesn't make sense. You must know that the Silver Blizzard City had Xiao Buyu, who had forced the Dongfang family to make a shameful oath, and Xiao Han, who has become an irreconcilable enemy of Jun Wui. Every injustice has its perpetrator. Every debt has its debtor. That's true. But Jun Wui's legs are crippled, and there's no way he could have recovered. So, how could he have taken revenge? There's no hope for him to take revenge on his own. But it would be even more difficult to explain what he had said and done if he were to deny this. Therefore, there's a lot of doubt in this matter. The emperor frowned as he paced back and forth. He was pondering and analyzing this matter in a calm manner. Your Majesty, it seems to me that the possibility of this matter being true is very high. Mr. Wen spoke up in a serious manner. Your Majesty, please think about it. Most of the people who were present at that time were influenced by Li Ju-tian, and they didn't get along well with the Jun family. In fact, many families had participated in the conspiracy to kill Jun Wui. So, how is it possible to bluff under the watchful eyes of so many people? Moreover, Tian Fei's Xian King and the Immortal Palace's protectors were present at that time. So, it's undoubtedly impossible to pull a stunt in front of such a peerless expert. Your Majesty's suspicions are very reasonable. I believe that the only reasonable explanation is that the Jun family has recently used some unknown method to win over such an expert. It's similar to how the solitary falcon, who was ranked last among the 8 great masters, came to the Jun family to oversee the situation. But this mysterious person's strength is even more terrifying. Mr. Wen spoke up in a serious manner, but it doesn't matter whether this person has existed recently or for a long time. There's no doubt about this. Yes, I was hoping for a fluke, that's all. But that fluke is no longer possible. So, the imperial court's attitude towards the Jun family needs to be decided now. His Majesty the Emperor sighed deeply. A layer of worry appeared between his brows. His eyes gazed deeply into the distance, a little distracted. It was clear that the Emperor of Tianxiang had long acknowledged the existence of that expert. His earlier actions were merely in hopes that someone would be able to magnify his luck. The Jun family, Your Majesty hasn't done anything to them. So, their relationship can be considered harmonious. Mr. Wen continued, the Jun family now has such a powerful ally. So, it's not necessarily a bad thing for Your Majesty and the entire Tianxiang Empire. We only need to maintain our current relationship, and we need to win them over. Junjian Tian is by no means an ungrateful person. It's a good thing. The Emperor smiled bitterly. Then he spoke in a low voice. Junjan Tian is by no means an ungrateful person. He didn't know why, but he had repeated Mr. Wen's words. Moreover, his tone was strange and somewhat eerie. Mr. Wen was stunned to see that the emperor's complexion was as deep as water. He couldn't see the slightest trace of happiness, anger, sorrow, or happiness. In fact, even the gloomy expression on his face had disappeared without a trace. But Mr. Wen could feel a deep pressure from the bottom of his heart. A sudden gust of wind blew through the window, and a secret memorial on the table fell to the ground. It was flipped open to a page. Jun Wui is safe and sound in the Southern Heavens War. His army will return in a few days. But a mysterious powerhouse has appeared. He has looked down on everyone. Millions of people don't dare to disobey him. He has killed the great masterly Zhu Tian with a flip of his hand. He has claimed to be a member of the Jun family. He has intimidated the snow-blowing city. He has collapsed the Shui Hun Manor. The Lord of Tian Fa hasn't dared to greet him. Lei Baoyu and Bu Guangfeng haven't dared to move either. Then it was a lengthy and extremely detailed piece of writing. Mr. Wen's eyes focused on one line of words. He has looked down on everyone. Millions of people don't dare to disobey him. He has killed the great masterly Zhu Tian with a flip of his hand. He has claimed to be a member of the Jun family. He has intimidated the snow-blowing city. He has collapsed the Shui Hun Manor. He has ascended to the clouds and disappeared. Who could such an expert be? Mr. Wen narrowed his eyes. He then looked up to the sky and began to ponder. Only 3 days had passed since the Southern Heavens War, but a secret memorial had already appeared on the Emperor's desk. It's a little too fast, even if it's a messenger eagle. Jun Manor, old man Junjan Tian, had been living in seclusion ever since his son and grandson had gone to war. He hadn't shown his face in public since then. Old Peng rushed in with a bamboo tube in his hand. "My lord, there's a secret report from the Southern Heavens War." Junjan Tian opened his eyes and stood up. "Let me see it." He hurriedly took the tube. In fact, his arm was trembling a little. Old man Jun's face didn't change in the slightest, but his heart was filled with fear. Only old Peng knew that Junjan Tian hadn't had a good night's sleep during the 2 months that Jun Wu-yi and his nephew had been on the expedition. After skimming through the secret report, Junjan Tian was surprised to find that there was nothing that he didn't want to see in the secret report. Only then did he let out a long sigh and began to carefully read it word by word from the beginning. His tensed body finally relaxed, and he slowly sat back in his chair. Wu-yi is safe and sound. Emosia is safe and sound. They will return triumphantly in the next few days. Junjan Tian couldn't contain the happiness in his heart. He was trying to look indifferent, but his eyebrows were brimming with happiness. However, Emosia will go with his uncle to the Dongfang family. This is the request of the 3 swords of Dongfang. "My lord, this is great news." Old Peng replied happily. Junjan Tian smiled, and the wrinkles on his face bloomed like flowers. He said, "Yes, it's indeed worth being happy about. The Dongfang family, our Jun family, owes a great debt of gratitude. Emosia is a heroic and quick-witted child. He's 1 in a million. The old man will be very happy when he sees him." Old man Jun didn't know that the precious grandson he was praising had done something earth-shattering 3 days after the secret report had been sent from Tian Fa. At least, that incident was no less than a magnitude 8 earthquake or a magnitude 9 tsunami for the Jun family. Old man Jun would have picked up a wooden stick and broken that boy's legs if he knew about it. This was the 3rd time that Jun Moxie had entered the Tian Fa forest. The first time, he had taken away the sacred fruit. The second time, he had turned around and had only spoken a few words with Bear Mountain. This time, he had come to Tian Fa for the 3rd time. From Dashao's point of view, Jun Moxie clearly felt that the Tian Fa forest was the most suitable place for him. This place made him feel comfortable from the bottom of his heart. If possible, he didn't even want to leave. It was only in this world that he could truly relax and be at ease. Dashao secretly sighed and flew in at high speed like a beam of light. After his previous experience, he knew that the kings of the Tian Fa forest would not stay at the edge of the forest. The entire Tian Fa forest occupied an unusually large area. Jun Moxie didn't know whether they were in the central area or not. Last time, he had collected a lot of rare herbs like locusts. However, the proportion of the herbs he had collected was only a straight line on the map. It was a straight line leading to the mysterious core of Tian Fa. At most, it was a radius of a circle. Even though Da Xiao had swept everything clean, it was only a drop in the ocean. The loss of the top-notch herbs in the center of the circle was rather disastrous. Therefore, Da Xiao was one of the few humans who had ventured deep into the Tian Fa forest. However, his knowledge of the Tian Fa forest wasn't much better than the others. Therefore, it wasn't easy to find people in such a vast place. Therefore, Jun Moxie could only rely on his impression of the place where he had seen them last time. Jun Moxie's spiritual sense had also greatly increased along with the growth of his cultivation. Therefore, he quickly found the place where he had seen the Crane brothers and the Bear brothers, the 10,000 Poison Valley. The surroundings of the 10,000 Poison Valley were still desolate. Da Xiao didn't go deep into the valley. He didn't need to. He could easily sense that the Crane brothers and the Bear brothers weren't there. Even the Snake King wasn't there. Da Xiao wasn't in the mood to look for them. It's not easy for me to find them, but it's easy for them to find me. Chapter 385. Today's eruption. The third update has arrived. The fourth update is in progress. This was undoubtedly a signal, an absolutely explosive signal. Long Crane and Bear Mountain weren't in the Tian Fa forest right now. Otherwise, they would have come out to meet them. The third Crane and the fourth Bear were drinking in the depths of the forest. Long Crane had always been a cautious person, but Bear Mountain had a typical live-and-let-live character. So, Bear Mountain suddenly felt that there was no tiger in the mountain, and the monkey was the king. Boss isn't here, so I'm the boss. Therefore, he had been drinking and merrymaking with Long Crane for the past 2 days. And he hadn't paid any attention to the recent events in Tian Fa. This simple-minded temperament was similar to that of Jun Moxie, to a certain extent. The two Beast Kings weren't drinking in their human forms. Instead, they were drinking in their true forms. One of them was a huge bear with golden fur and looked like a small mountain. The fourth Crane's true form was that of a red-crowned crane. His entire body was snow-white, and his eyes were as red as 2 dazzling torches. The table in front of the two Beast Kings was made of a huge blue stone. It was 20 feet in diameter. The wine cups were carved out of the roots of a 1,000-year red sandalwood tree. In fact, the amount of wine in one cup was equivalent to the amount of wine in this world. As for the wine that the two Beast Kings were drinking, it was exceptionally fragrant. It was the monkey wine brewed by the monkeys of the Tian Fa forest. And the two Beast Kings had used their power to get their hands on it. So, they were gorging themselves on it. One of them had thick bear-like lips, while the other had a sharp crane-like beak. Third brother, I've discovered that you're becoming more and more careful. In fact, you're being excessively careful. You're worried about that Tian Fa's sacred fruit. The big black bear's eyes were hazy with drunkenness. He patted the golden fur on his chest and spoke in human language. I don't understand why you're worrying about personal gains and losses all day long. Aren't you tired? It was obvious that Long Crane was worried about the matter of the sacred fruit. However, Bear Mountain didn't care about it at all. After all, Bear Mountain had full confidence in that mysterious master. His intuition told him that there was no need for an expert of that level to lie. Therefore, he didn't understand why Long Crane was so worried. In fact, he even despised him. Your big bear brain is full of muscles. What do you know? Long Crane opened his huge eyelids and looked at Bear Mountain with his ruby-like eyes. One can never be too careful. If that person really disappears, what can you and I do? You bear, your brain is too small. If you go out to mingle, you will definitely be cheated by others. You're just like second brother. You foolishly run away after making a bet. You're also the same. You didn't run away. Bear Mountain was silent for a moment. Then he spoke in a deep voice. In fact, I believe in that master. But I also feel that the risk of using the sacred fruit to advance is too great. In fact, there's always the risk of my body exploding. In fact, the success rate of this method may not even reach 30% in the past. But if that master really has a way to advance without any risks, then it's worth it even if I have to wait and take risks. Long Crane was stunned when he heard Bear Mountain's words. He hadn't expected that the ignorant Bear Mountain would say such a thing. So, he couldn't help but feel that it was very reasonable. I really didn't expect that you, Bear Mountain, would be able to say such a thing. But it's true that even a fool's thousands of considerations are correct. So, I'll give you a toast for your words. Bear Mountain was very happy when he heard this. He drank 3 or 4 cups of wine in one go. Then, he said, "What do you mean by even a fool's thousands of considerations are correct?" This king has always been a wise man, but I won't easily open my mouth. Long Crane saw Bear Mountain blow his own trumpet and couldn't help but smile. He was about to raise his cup to drink when he suddenly thought of something. So he raised his head and said, "I say, you've grown bold, haven't you? Who were you calling third brother a moment ago? I'm your third brother. Don't you have any respect for me? I only praised you once, and you've forgotten about the 4 cardinal directions? What you said just now is reasonable, but this matter is still too risky. After all, the sacred fruit isn't in the hands of our own people. So, it's not appropriate." Bear Mountain snorted and said, "What's risky? Don't tell me that you don't want to take risks in the hands of your own people. It's not like it hasn't happened since ancient times, right? Do you want to make another bet with me?" Long Crane rolled his red eyes and replied in a somewhat bad manner, "When will you get rid of your bad habit of betting? Don't forget that second brother had made himself into someone else's mount because of a bet. I see that you're very likely to do the same thing. Besides, why would we still want to make a bet? We'll both slit our throats in case we can't find that person. Bet? Bet your ass." Bear Mountain was extremely angry. He jumped up and said, "I like to bet with you, and I'll bet with you today. I bet that that person isn't the kind of person you're talking about." Long Crane snorted and replied in an indifferent manner, "He's not that kind of person? Humph. The dust has already settled on the Shui Hun Manor's matter. So, he should have fulfilled his promise." Even if he didn't fulfill his promise to exchange the sacred fruit for the spirit pills, he should have at least fulfilled his promise to help us break through to the 10th level of Xian beasts. So, why hasn't he appeared yet? Maybe he's been delayed by some other matter. How can a person like him go back on his word? Bear Mountain's confident tone collapsed in an instant. He seemed to be lacking in confidence. A person like him wouldn't go back on his word. Long Crane sighed and said, "There are many cases of humans going back on their word. How many people would take a mere promise to heart? Old Bear, you're too naive. Great wisdom appears to be slow-witted. You can fool yourself." Bear Mountain snorted twice. Then, he picked up the huge container of wine and gulped down a mouthful of it. Then, he squinted his eyes. It was obvious that he couldn't bear to see Long Crane being so cautious. Suddenly, he felt an overwhelming and tyrannical pressure coming from the Tian Fa forest. Bear Mountain's entire body trembled. His hands trembled, and he dropped the huge container of wine on the stone table. Then, he jumped up and spoke up in an exceptionally excited manner. "It's him. He's come to look for us. He must have come to help us advance. Third Crane, what else do you have to say?" Long Crane's face beamed with happiness. He had forgotten about the third crane at this moment. So, he flew up with a bang. Then, he flapped his wings and shouted, "Fourth Crane has won his bet. He's really here." The 2 Xian Beast Kings looked at each other, and a look of ecstasy appeared in their eyes. Bear Mountain didn't want to wait any longer. So, he jumped onto Long Crane's back. Then, he pointed to the front and shouted, "Quickly take off." His tone was decisive, and his tone was full of command. However, Long Crane wasn't prepared for its weight of several thousand kilograms. So, he didn't take off. Instead, he fell to the ground with a thump. Then, he said angrily, "You bastard! You can't come back up after you transform? Fu*K your father. Don't you know that you're 3,000 kilograms heavy? Then he realized that something was wrong. So he added, "You motherfucker, hurry up and come down. I'm your third brother, not your mount. Run over by yourself." Bear Mountain didn't let go of his 2 feathers. So, he quickly transformed into his human form and shamelessly refused to come down. Long Crane was helpless. He was afraid that he would miss this opportunity. So, he flapped his wings and soared into the sky. Then, he rushed towards the source of the pressure at a high speed. June and Mo Xie stood calmly in the air. All the Xian beasts that felt this extremely powerful pressure were trembling in fear, not daring to make the slightest move. In the face of the enormous pressure of the world, there might not be many Xian beasts in the world that could endure it. Suddenly, the sound of wind and thunder resounded in the distance. Then, a huge shadow flew over. It was Long Crane, who was carrying Bear Mountain on his back. He had arrived in an awe-inspiring manner like a dragon rider from a fantasy legend. June Moxie remained motionless until Long Crane transformed into his human form. Then, both of them landed on the ground in front of him. June Moxie then floated down as a feather. "Senior, you've come." Long Crane was somewhat embarrassed. They had called him Brother Phone back in the Tianxiang city, but they were calling him Senior now. The 2 Xian Beast Kings felt depressed in their hearts. They didn't know why, but they didn't dare to address him as an equal. Moreover, they had been suspecting him a moment ago. But they had now seen him in person. So, Long Crane felt somewhat embarrassed. I'm about to leave the Southern Heaven City in a few days. But I suddenly remembered that I owed you a promise. A man can't live without keeping his word. So, how can I leave when I haven't repaid my debt?" June Moxie spoke in an ostentatious manner. "Ha ha ha. Senior is a man of his word." Old Crane was worried that Senior wouldn't come. He thought that Senior would sneak away. But I scolded him in a righteous manner. "Old Crane, do you realize your mistake now?" "Ha ha ha." Bear Mountain grinned proudly. He felt that he had won a big victory. How could he not be happy and proud? This man had come here. So it meant that he valued his promises. And how could a man who valued his promises so much kidnap the Tian Fa Forest sacred fruit? Doesn't this mean that the spirit pills are also very promising? Therefore, Bear Mountain let go of all his worries in a split second. You damned bearded man. What nonsense are you talking about?" I don't believe you, Senior." Long Crane was speechless. His fingers were trembling. He wished that he could strangle this bear to death. He hadn't expected that this bear would betray him in order to curry favor with this man. It doesn't matter. It's only human nature. June Moxie chuckled. He didn't know why, but June Moxie would feel particularly happy every time he faced these 2 Beast Kings. This wasn't the kind of pleasure one would get from showing off. Instead, it was because he didn't need to figure out other people's schemes. Compared to human experts, the Beast Kings of the Tian Fa Forest were obviously much more simple and honest. This kind of atmosphere made June Moxie feel relaxed. In fact, it seemed as if he had suddenly distanced himself from the endless deception. "Well, I'll keep my word. I've come here to fulfill my promise. You too should get ready. Calm down and adjust your state of mind to the best. The most important thing is to adjust your state of mind to the most peaceful state. I'll take a look at your progress first." June Moxie didn't even realize that there was a faint sense of cordiality in his laughter. Such cordiality was very rare to see, except for Grandpa June, Third Master June, and a few others. Chapter 386. Since ancient times, Xian beasts were still beasts, no matter what level they reached. And it didn't matter whether they could take human form or not. So, there was always a faint barrier between them and humans. And no one was willing to stand side by side with Xian beasts. Therefore, the 3 Holy Lands had come to be known as the Ominous Land. In fact, it would have been the 4 Holy Lands if it wasn't because of this matter, and not the 3 Holy Lands and the Ominous Land. And this was the case even for those who stood at the pinnacle of the human world. Therefore, Jun Moxie had unintentionally revealed this faint feeling of familiarity. Although it was a subtle feeling that came from the bottom of his heart, but this subtle feeling was something that Xian beasts were extremely sensitive to. So, it was undoubtedly something that they had never experienced before. At this moment, Long Crane and Bear Mountain felt that this mysterious person was amiable and trustworthy. Therefore, the two of them didn't hesitate. They looked at Jun Moxie with exceptional gratitude and then sat down cross-legged. Soon, a strong smell of alcohol started to evaporate from their bodies. Her slightly flushed face gradually returned to its normal color. Big Bear felt that his jinchi was flowing freely and his heart was like still water. Just as he was about to open his eyes, suddenly a hand was gently placed on his shoulder, landing on the position of the clavicle well acupuncture point. A gentle voice said, "Calm your mind, don't move. Long Crane, come and protect me. Don't disturb me while I'm casting." Bear Mountain's heart skipped a beat. He removed his guard for the first time and exposed his entire chi to the probing of this hand. This was the first time that Bear Mountain had unreservedly trusted a human being since he was born. Long Crane complied and quietly slid a few feet away. He then vigilantly watched his surroundings for any movement. The Tion Fa forest was their territory. But Long Crane was still on high alert at this moment. It seemed as if he was facing a formidable enemy. The reason for that was because this advancement was simply too important to him and Big Bear. With his eyes closed, Bear Mountain felt a slight coolness on his shoulder. It was as if a drop of ice water had suddenly fallen on his bare shoulder in the middle of winter. It was a clear feeling that seeped into his bones. Then, a huge amount of pure heaven and earth spiritual chi surged out from the hand that was caressing his shoulder and poured into his meridians like a river flowing backwards. In his meridians, the Beast King's Yuan Qi, which had already reached a critical point and was almost at a standstill, slowly moved under the stimulation of this enormous pure energy. Then his meridians seemed to be slowly receiving some kind of nourishment and then began to expand bit by bit. To think that there would be such a fast and obvious progress and effect. The shock and admiration in Big Bear's heart instantly reached the extreme, but he still didn't dare to be the slightest bit flustered. He did his best to guide the external powerful chi, and according to his usual cultivation path, he slowly guided it into his dantian. Long Crane stood 30 feet away from Bear Mountain's body. Then, he suddenly discovered that a milky white mist was emitting from Bear Mountain's body. The mist was getting thicker and thicker. In fact, it seemed as if it was condensing into a substantial substance. Then, it slowly enveloped Bear Mountain's entire body. Heaven and earth spiritual chi. Isn't this the sign of a level 10 Xian beast? How can he break through so quickly? How is this possible? Long Crane exclaimed in his heart. He subconsciously rubbed his eyes. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. A miracle had happened in front of his eyes. This was an incredible miracle. In Long Crane's opinion, the mysterious man had promised to help them break through. Even if the mysterious man was sincere in helping them, and even if he had some kind of magical ability, the best outcome would be to find a way to raise their cultivation to the critical point. Then the two of them would have to go into seclusion to cultivate. Then they would have to put their lives on the line to successfully break through. That would be the best outcome for them. However, Long Crane hadn't expected that this mysterious, peerless expert would be so skillful. In fact, he had used his own strength to help the two of them break through in the blink of an eye. In fact, he hadn't even stopped for a moment. What did this mean? What did it mean? This meant that this mysterious black-clothed man was going to sacrifice a portion of his painstakingly cultivated heaven and earth yuan qi to help the two of them. Long Crane's eyes became moist in a split second. For the sake of a bet, an insignificant promise, an oath that could not even be considered an oath in the eyes of such a peerless master, this master actually fulfilled his promise. He had even made such a sacrifice. How many people had kept their promises since ancient times? How could such a person not be trustworthy? Could it be that he had swindled the sacred fruits out of them? That would be a huge joke. One must know that this mysterious man could have easily killed the two of them when the two Xian Beast Kings had lowered their guard. Then he could have obtained 2 top-notch level 10 Xian Dan pills. He wouldn't have needed to pay any price. Instead, he would have gained a great harvest. In fact, it would have been very beneficial to his own cultivation. However, the mysterious man hadn't done so. Instead, he had kept his promise. In fact, he hadn't hesitated to sacrifice his own strength in order to help the two of them break through. Long Crane asked himself, would I do it if I could help Bear Mountain break through by sacrificing my own strength? Long Crane's face turned red with shame after he had carefully considered this matter. That was because he had made a decision in his heart. I won't do it. I'm not willing to sacrifice myself for the sake of my own brother. So, how can anyone else do it? This mysterious man in black was worthy of the admiration of everyone in the world. Anyone could feel at ease and feel honored to be friends with such a person. Jun Dashao would have fainted from happiness if he had known that the two Xian Beast Kings were thinking this way. Moreover, they would have woken up and then fainted again. There seemed to be too many misunderstandings in between. Jun Moxie had kept his promise, and he had indeed consumed a huge amount of pure energy. But he hadn't sacrificed his own strength to help the two of them break through. In fact, Jun Moxie would have never agreed to it if that had been the case. Jun Dashao had never been a great hero. So, how could he have done such a good deed? The reason was none other than the fact that the precious energy of the Xian beasts of Tianfa was too much for Dashao. After all, the amount of energy in the Hongjun Pagoda was too huge for Jun Moxie. In fact, it was inexhaustible. Moreover, more and more energy would be absorbed every day as he practiced. So, he wouldn't have to worry about the problem of energy depletion. To Jun Moxie, using the Hongjun Pagoda's aura to help Xian beasts advance to the next level was akin to a rich man guarding a huge Himalayan mountain. He was flaunting his wealth in front of ordinary office workers. Then, he would give a few gold coins to each of them and generously say, "It's nothing. Take it and spend it. Well, it should be more or less like that." Moreover, the simplicity of the two Xian Beast Kings, Bear Mountain and Long Crane, was very much to Jun Moxie's liking. Therefore, Jun Moxie was willing to help them. Moreover, there were many benefits to helping them. These two weren't ordinary people. In fact, they were comparable to the great masters. If Shi-En befriended these two people, it wouldn't do him any harm no matter what. It was often said that having one friend who could truly help one was enough in this world. But who would complain about having too many of such friends? On the other hand, the other party had helped him a lot. Moreover, he had also obtained the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit and many other elixirs from them. Jun Moxie felt that what he had done for him wasn't even worth mentioning in comparison to what the other party had done for him. Jun Moxie felt somewhat ashamed in his heart. Dashao wasn't a good person, but he still had a conscience. Well, what the other party had done for him wasn't even worth mentioning in comparison to what he had done for the other party. The two Xian Beast Kings were thinking of the same thing at the same time. In fact, this feeling was 10,000 times stronger than that of Jun Moxie's. They are truly peerless experts. Bear Mountain sighed in his heart. He was infinitely moved. Suddenly, he felt the energy in his dantian start to rotate. It was getting more and more urgent. It had formed a whirlpool in his dantian, and all the energy in the world had started to crazily converge in a split second. Spirit gathering. He had finally reached the critical point, and he was going to make an explosive breakthrough without stopping. Bear Mountain's mind tightened. He couldn't afford to let his imagination run wild. Instead, he did his utmost to push the energy in his body. Then, he started to cooperate with the extremely vigorous energy that was being transmitted from that warm hand. It was enough to shake the heavens and the earth. Boom. The thick fog around Bear Mountain suddenly disappeared. Then, a loud sound was heard. No one knew where this sound had come from, but It seemed as if it had reverberated in everyone's mind. It was a very mysterious feeling. June Moxie's body suddenly flashed. He had moved 30 meters away and was now standing shoulder to shoulder with Long Crane. Her black mask had become somewhat damp with sweat, and her body seemed to be trembling. In short, Long Crane saw that she was doing her best and was in a state of exhaustion. Long Crane was extremely grateful. He was about to speak, but he saw June Moxie raise his index finger and place it in front of his mouth. Then he said, "Don't be impatient. I'm about to make a breakthrough." How could a beast king like Long Crane not know about this? He had clearly felt his soul tremble. And he knew that Bear Mountain had finally made a breakthrough. He had become a real bear king from now on. Bear Mountain's strength was no less than that of the second great Master Li Jutian at his peak. In fact, he might even be stronger than him. A low but abnormally vigorous roar came out from Big Bear's mouth. At the same time, a dazzling golden halo suddenly spread out from his body. Everywhere it passed, even the ground was reflected in a golden color. Bear Mountain's body started to move without any wind, and he slowly rose up from the ground. Then, the sounds of his bones cracking could be heard. In fact, the sound of his soul exploding could be heard. Then, the sound of his true chi exploded. Boom! Bear Mountain's accumulated true chi had finally burst out, and his majestic body reverted to its original form in midair. He was a tall, strong, and ferocious giant bear. All of the golden fur on his body suddenly stood up. Every single strand of golden fur seemed to be overflowing with light and vibrant colors. This strange phenomenon slowly stopped after a long time. All the Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest kept quiet out of fear. Even the Xian beast kings were trembling with fear. They could tell from the fluctuations in their souls that another peerless expert had appeared in the Tian Fa forest. It was a genuine Xian beast king. This chapter has repeated a paragraph, but it has been edited to add another 400 words. Thank you to the fifth author, Xianin Zhu, for the reminder. Chapter 387. Today's first update has been delivered. Thank you for your support. The second update will come later. Bear Mountain returned to his human form after a long time. He was overjoyed as he examined his body. It seemed as if he was still in a dream. But that wonderful dreamlike feeling didn't disappear even after a long time had passed. It wasn't until he checked his entire body that he finally believed that he had really advanced. Bear Mountain looked up to the sky and let out a long and loud cry. His huge eyes were rolling with tears. He suddenly strode over to June Moxie and knelt down with a thump. June Moxie was startled. He didn't have enough time to stop Bear Mountain. Bear Mountain kowtowed a few times and said in a choked voice, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Long Crane's eyes also turned red. He was also a beast king, and he was stuck at the same bottleneck. So, he could understand Bear Mountain's feelings. And he also understood why Bear Mountain was kowtowing. That was because this mysterious expert had undoubtedly given them a new lease of life. June Moxie hastily helped Fourth Bear up and said, "What are you doing? This is only a bet, and I'm only fulfilling my promise. So, there's no need to do this." June Dashao felt a little disgusted as he said these words. This was a typical case of showing off one's cleverness after taking advantage of others. This is a small contribution, but a big gain. Doing 10 or 8 great clans a day wouldn't be too much. And I'll do a few more great clans if I have the opportunity. Bear Mountain and Long Crane didn't feel this way. Their eyes were still brimming with tears as they said, "This is a bet, and it may not be a big deal in your eyes. But this old bear has given me a new lease of life. I can't thank you enough. So, if the senior has any errands to run, please don't hesitate to tell me. This old bear doesn't have much else. But I'm not stingy with my strength. The name Great Earth Bear King isn't just for show." June Moxie looked at Bear Mountain. His eyes were shining with sincerity. Suddenly, Jun Moxie felt that his original utilitarian thoughts were somewhat despicable in the face of such sincerity. He looked up to the sky and let out a long sigh. He had finally figured it out. To his subordinates or enemies, he might need to use schemes, no matter how heavy the schemes were. But to his true friends, there was no need to scheme at all. Even if he used a little, it would be too much. And Bear Mountain was clearly such a person. As long as he received someone else's kindness, he would never forget it until he died. Such a person is worthy to be friends. Jun Moxie gently patted Big Bear's shoulder and said in a serious tone, "Old Bear, don't be like this. I really think of you as a friend." He took a deep breath and slowly said, "I don't have many friends in this world. You can be considered as one of them. So, you don't need to thank me." In a split second, Big Bear's hairy face glowed with radiance. He was overjoyed and said, "Good, good. This old bear is being unreasonable." Jun Moxie chuckled and said, "Now, it's your turn to stand guard. I'll lend Crane King a hand. I'll fulfill my promise." Long Crane asked worriedly, "You've just consumed a lot of energy. Do you want to rest? Give me a reply?" Jun Moxie said, "No need. I can still bear it. Come." He then stretched out his hand. Long Crane hesitated for a moment. He repeatedly looked at Jun Moxie to make sure that he was all right. Then he finally sat down. After some time, Jun Moxie looked at the ecstatic Long Crane and Bear Mountain, and he suddenly felt very happy in his heart. In fact, it was an indescribable feeling of happiness. This kind of happiness was completely different from the pleasure of successfully plotting against someone, or the ecstasy of obtaining an unexpected treasure, or the relief of killing an enemy. This was pure happiness. But this kind of happiness gave Jun Moxie the greatest enjoyment. It turns out that killing isn't the only thrill that comes from fighting and killing others. Helping others once in a while is also a very comfortable feeling. Jun Moxie smiled as he thought about it. Jun Moxie spent the rest of the night in a very comfortable, happy, and contented manner. Big Bear and Long Crane were doing their utmost to invite this great benefactor to join them. In fact, they had even made a solemn vow that they had prepared a huge amount of monkey wine in order to show their sincerity. It was difficult to refuse their hospitality. Moreover, the two Beast Kings had already said that. So, it would be unreasonable for Da Xiao to refuse. Moreover, there was still a lot of time before daybreak. So, Jun Moxie happily went to meet them. The monkey wine was a legendary wine. In fact, it couldn't even be compared to the inferior wines of this world. So, it would be a waste if he didn't try since he had such a great opportunity. Bear Mountain continued to issue orders along the way. He made the level 9 Xian beasts and level 8 Xian beasts contribute their best food. In fact, he even requested them to be sent over at the speed of the Crane King. The center of the Tian Fa forest had turned into a chaotic mess. This chaos was even bigger than the previous Xian beast wave. The Tian Fa forest had always been quiet in the dark of the night, but the sky was filled with dust today. The high-level Xian beasts were scurrying around like headless flies. The previous Xian beast wave had caused a huge commotion. However, it hadn't had the slightest effect on the interior of the Tian Fa forest. But it was different this time. It had blossomed inside the forest. It was common to see such a scene. A bear carrying a pile of fragrant red fruits dashed from the south to the north, its heavy footsteps causing the ground to tremble. On the other side, there was also a golden tiger carrying fruits and galloping at full speed. Then, the two level 9 Xian beasts coincidentally collided with each other with a bang. They fell to the ground, and the precious fruits were scattered all over the ground. The Tiger King, the Lion King, and the Eagle King had also rushed over like a whirlwind. There weren't many opportunities to drink wine at the same table with a super strong expert. Only a fool wouldn't seize this opportunity with all his might. Perhaps he would be able to make a breakthrough with just a few words from this strong expert. Didn't you see that third and fourth brother had made a breakthrough in such a baffling manner? Forget about the sacred fruit. Even a miraculous heavenly treasure wouldn't be able to produce such a terrifying effect, right? Jun Moxie's eyes opened wide when he saw that huge stone table. Jun Moxie felt a strong sense of dizziness when he saw those two wine cups. He even suspected that Bear Mountain and Long Crane hadn't invited him to drink wine. But they had invited him to take a bath. Those wine cups and the utensils used to hold the wine were too big. In fact, even a large bathtub wouldn't be that big then. He saw the golden-haired monkeys working tirelessly to carry barrels of monkey wine. They were carrying small barrels. After all, the size of the monkeys wasn't as ridiculous as the 3 cranes and the 4 bears. In the distance, there were countless golden-haired monkeys working persistently to carry the barrels. Their target was the same place. Then, the Level 9 Xian Beasts, Level 9 Xian Beasts, and Level 8 Xian Beasts presented countless precious fruits with flattering expressions on their faces. Then, they wagged their tails and retreated in glory. Good heavens! I've never seen or eaten these fruits. In fact, I've only heard of them in legends. Da Xiao's eyes couldn't help but shine with a blue light. How much wealth can I create if I bring these fruits back to the Tianxiang city? The fruits here are enough to move people's hearts. But the strange Xian beasts around them are even more astonishing. Who has ever seen a tiger or a bear with such human-like flattery? I've seen it. Moreover, it's not just 1 or 2 beasts, it's not just a group or 2. Instead, it's a lot. How can such a situation not be strange? Everything in front of me has been prepared to welcome this young master. Jun Moxie suddenly became arrogant. Jun Moxie suddenly felt that he was a legendary figure, the great sage equaling heavens. Only when the great sage equaling heavens had wreaked havoc in the heavenly palace, when he had occupied the mountain of flowers and fruits, as the king of the 72 caves had come to join him, this kind of comfortable life is simply the life of an immortal. Silently, a huge snow-white lion came to the stone table in an extremely respectful manner. It cupped its 2 furry paws towards Jun Moxie in a somewhat restrained manner. Then, its buttocks rubbed against half of the stone bench, and it sat down. Its iron-like tail swayed behind it like a flagpole. It swayed back and forth non-stop. Jun Moxie was dumbstruck for a while. He finally understood that this guy had cupped its paws to salute him. Moreover, it had cupped its hands in greeting. It's too polite. This is truly shocking. Bear Mountain, who had already taken his seat, introduced, "Cough, cough, Senior, this is my 6th brother, the Lion King, Worryless Stones." Cough, cough, cough. Jun Moxie coughed violently. Lion King? His surname is sh*t? sh*t doesn't stink? This name is really very unique. Long Crane and Bear Mountain were instantly petrified. They were dumbstruck. The white jade Lion King's forehead was full of black lines. He was so embarrassed that he wanted to drill into the ground and escape. He looked at Bear Mountain with an awkward expression on his face, as if to say, "Hurry up and explain to me. This kind of name is so disgusting that I won't even have the mood to drink." "Senior, you misunderstand. My 6th brother's surname is a homonym for lion. It means stone, as in stone, worry, as in worry, and worry, as in not worry, he. Long Crane coughed as he explained. "So that's how it is. I was thinking too much. I asked the Lion King to forgive me." Jun Moxie nodded and cupped his hands towards the Lion King. The Lion King immediately quieted down. "This great master is apologizing to me. This is indeed the bearing of a great master." Worryless Stone had a belly full of unhappiness. But he suddenly felt that he had gained a lot of face at this moment. The other golden-robed man had also arrived in front of the stone table. He was about to speak when he heard the phrase, "Shit doesn't stink." So, he hastily bowed as he saw Jun Moxie's gaze turn towards him. "This is the 9th brother, the Golden Tiger King, Earthcracker." Bear Mountain grinned as he introduced. His eyes were brimming with a smile. It was obvious that he hadn't gotten rid of the joke of, "Shit doesn't stink." Tiger King, Earthcracker. This name is very powerful. It's comparable to Bear King's. One can split mountains, and the other can split the earth. It's very interesting. Jun Moxie's eyes were very gentle behind his veil. The Golden Tiger King, Earthcracker, was very pleased with this evaluation. He was overwhelmed by the favor and sat down. Chapter 388. Today's second night has arrived. Tomorrow's outbreak will continue for the 5th time this month, and the first night will be at midnight. Tomorrow's outbreak will end the 3rd part of the Tian Fa Forest and officially enter the 4th part, the Silver Blizzard City. Suddenly, a dark cloud covered the sky, and a huge Eagle King spread its wings and glided over to the top of everyone's heads. Then, its body rapidly shrank and turned into a cold-looking man dressed in iron-colored clothes. His hooked nose hung on his face, and he looked quite ferocious. Then, he cupped his hands and bowed respectfully to Jun Moxie. "This is my 10th brother, the Eagle King, the Sky Shatterer." Long Crane introduced him this time. It seemed that the Tian Fa Forest's flying Xian beasts were under Long Crane's control, and the land Xian beasts were under Bear Mountain's jurisdiction. In the distance, there was another monkey that was obviously much larger than the other monkeys. It flew over at lightning speed. He was panting as he bowed to Jun Moxie. "This is my 7th brother, the Monkey King. His name is Ho Chi." Bear Mountain looked a little sad. Then he said, "8th sister, the Snake King, you've seen her before, but she and the eldest brother have gone out to handle some matters and are not in the forest. The youngest brother is in closed-door training and hasn't appeared for 3 years, so that's how it is. I had only met the Venerable May of Tian Fa's Beast King for a short time, and it's a pity that I didn't get the chance to meet him. What a pity. And that Snake King, that little girl, dares to take responsibility for her actions, and this king admires her." Jun Moxie chuckled as he said this, and covered the glass with his hand. The Beast Kings thought that he was going to drink, but they waited for a long time and didn't see him pick up the glass. They couldn't help but feel puzzled. Suddenly, a burst of wine vapor floated above the glass, and a strong fragrance assailed their nostrils. It was the smell of the monkey wine. Then, it circled in the air and disappeared into Jun Moxie's mask. Jun Moxie smacked his lips and closed his eyes as if he was savoring the aftertaste. After a while, he said, "Good wine. It's worthy of being called monkey wine. It truly lives up to its reputation." All the Beast Kings were stunned, as expected of an expert. Even the way he drank wine was so unique. The Beast Kings had planned to use the opportunity of drinking to see what this peerless expert looked like. However, Jun Moxie's move had completely ruined their plans. All of them could not help but sigh, feeling a little disappointed. Jun Moxie suddenly changed the topic and asked, "By the way, Old Bear, I'm a little confused by your introduction. I know that the Tian Fa Forest has always been ranked according to one's strength. It has been like this since ancient times. It is not a secret. But why is it that the 9th Tiger King and the 10th Eagle King can transform into human form, but the 6th Lion King and the 7th Monkey King are still in their original forms?" As soon as he said that, the atmosphere instantly became heavy. The eyes of the Lion King, Carefree Rock, and the Monkey King, Ho Chi, emitted extremely strong sadness. "Since Mr. is inquiring, we will naturally tell you. This isn't a secret. 60 years ago, the Lion King and the Monkey King wanted to leave Tian Fa and explore the outside world." Long Crane's tone was deep as he continued, "But I didn't have any experience in the martial world after I went out. So I accidentally exposed my whereabouts. 4 of the 8 great masters attacked me at the same time, and they joined hands to launch a pincer attack. And the 6th and the 7th masters were no match for them. So they had to fight and flee at the same time. They were lucky enough to escape back to Tian Fa, but they inevitably sustained serious injuries. That battle left them with serious injuries that couldn't be healed. Their lives were saved, but their cultivation levels fell back to the 9th level. So they lost the ability to transform into human form. And it's still difficult for them to recover to this day. Long Crane said in grief and indignation. Lei Baoyu and Bu Guangfeng were among the 4 great masters. Our eldest brother was furious at that time. He personally went to the hermitage to seek justice. But the hermitage was full of experts. So, we were no match for them. So, the matter was left unsettled. Alas! The Lion King and the Monkey King sadly hung their heads. Their strength had been damaged, and their cultivation levels had regressed. They were in a precarious situation in a place like the Tianfa forest, where strength was respected. The 2 Beast Kings would have to hand over their king's position if a level 9 Xian beast were to appear in their respective tribes again. Several level 9 Xian beasts had risen among the Monkey King and the Lion King after 60 years of accumulation. And they were only a step away from transforming into human form. So, they had seriously threatened the leadership positions of the 2 Beast Kings. But their strength had regressed. So, they couldn't do anything about it. The rules were the rules. Only tyrannical strength mattered. The 2 Beast Kings had even discovered that discordant voices had started to appear in the people they were commanding. They weren't like they used to be. Their words were the law, and their orders were strictly obeyed. They had absolute authority and absolute strength. If it weren't for the help of the other Beast King brothers, it would have been too horrible to imagine. But the old and the new would replace the old. The strong would emerge, and the weak would be eliminated. This was a principle that hadn't changed for thousands of years. Once a new Beast King successfully transformed into human form, they would have to abide by the law of survival of the fittest in the Tianfa forest. Bear Shan Shan and the others couldn't interfere in the struggle between the Beast Kings. Then it would be the end of the road for the Beast Kings. Injured. Hee, what kind of injury is it? It's so sharp, and the consequences are so serious. Let me take a look. Maybe there's a way to save them. Jun Moxie's words shook the 6 Beast Kings. Their eyes revealed a look of ecstasy. Who was this person in front of them? This was a true, peerless expert who had reached the pinnacle of the world. They believed that there was nothing in this world that he couldn't do. He didn't say that he would help them, but the 2 Beast Kings would have hope as long as he helped them. He was a peerless expert who could help the 2 Beast Kings advance in an instant. So, what if they were to suffer some minor injuries? The Lion King and the Monkey King were so excited that their bodies trembled. The hope that they hadn't seen for a long time was right in front of them. Jun Moxie leisurely stretched out his hand and gently placed it on the Lion King's thick and furry shoulder. A wisp of pure and refreshing heaven-earth essence chi seeped into the Lion King's body, making the Lion King feel extremely comfortable. That wisp of extremely pure heaven-earth yuan chi circulated in the Lion King's body. After a long time, Jun Moxie put down his hand and placed it on the Monkey King's shoulder. The other Beast Kings looked at him nervously. None of them dared to make a sound. They were afraid that they would disturb this great expert. Because Jun Moxie was wearing a mask, they couldn't see the expression of this mysterious expert. They could only try their best to guess from his eyes. However, Jun Moxie's eyes were gentle and calm. They couldn't see anything. After the time it took to eat a meal, Jun Moxie finally stopped his movements. He slowly let out a long sigh. But this sigh sounded like a sigh in the ears of the 6 Beast Kings. Their hearts started to beat nervously at the same time. The injuries of the 6th Beast King and the 7th Beast King are not light. Their meridians have been severely damaged. Some of them have been shattered. Moreover, the circulation of the Dantian Yuan Qi has been blocked. Moreover, there's an inexplicable and malicious power that has been hiding in your meridians for many years. It's difficult to get rid of it. This is a sinister and poisonous energy. It's constantly destroying your meridians that should have been repaired a long time ago. Although it's not much, it's enough to make your cultivation stagnate. It can even cause your cultivation to decline step by step. I believe that this kind of sign, or at least the trend, has already appeared. Jun Moxie sighed and said, "This kind of sinister and poisonous mysterious technique. Which one of the 4 great masters did you suffer from?" The Lion King and the Monkey King were startled. They looked at each other and saw the answer in each other's eyes. The Lion King dipped his claws in the wine and slowly wrote a few words on the table. They had lost the ability to speak like a human after they had lost their ability to transform. However, they could still write. The great master of the underworld. So, it's the underworld's mysterious wind. No wonder it's so sinister. Long Crane and the others shouted. Senior, is there any hope that you can cure them since you found out? Bear Mountain asked nervously. The Lion King and the Monkey King were both walking beasts. So, they were considered the main forces of Bear Mountain's side. Moreover, they had cooperated with each other for a long time. So, they were already familiar with each other. So, it was hard to guarantee that Bear Mountain would have to go through a lot of trouble if two new Beast Kings were to come up. So, it was hard to say how long it would take for them to achieve that kind of seamless cooperation. That underworld's mysterious wind is sinister and incisive. Moreover, it's an old injury that has lasted for 60 years. Jun Moxie shook his head in a seemingly unintentional manner. The 6th Beast King and the 7th Beast King couldn't help but feel disheartened when they saw that even an expert like Jun Moxie was at a loss. In fact, all their hopes had turned to dust. Bear Mountain's complexion also changed. Don't tell me that we don't even have the opportunity to try. Jun Moxie calmly looked at Bear Mountain's anxious expression. Then, he took a deep breath, and his eyes revealed a warm expression as he said, no matter who's in the right or wrong in this matter, it's a grudge from 60 years ago. So I didn't want to get involved. Fine, I'll give you face. It's fate that we've met. I'll help them this time. This injury is troublesome, but it depends on who's going to treat it. The underworld's mysterious wind is vicious, but it's nothing in my eyes. With a single sentence, he had given Big Bear a huge amount of face. Bear Mountain became excited as soon as he heard these words. His broad black face was full of surprise, glory, and pride. He grinned widely and didn't know what to say. Look, this is the face of this old bear. Brother Fong is too generous. Wah. This makes me so excited. The Lion King and the Monkey King couldn't help but shiver. This good news was no less than a bolt from the blue for them. It shook them so much that their hearts almost stopped beating for a short period of time. One moment was hell, and the next was heaven. They had been in a hopeless situation a moment ago. But they had received such a big surprise the next moment. This had made the Lion King and the Monkey King feel that their hearts couldn't bear the burden. After all, even their big brother, whom they regarded as a deity, was helpless. In fact, Expert Fong had denied it a while ago. In fact, this kind of injury to his meridians was a piece of cake for Jun Moxie. Take Jun Wui's injury, for example. Even if Great Master Shen Xian had gone to treat it with all his heart, he would have lost most of his Xian cultivation, even if he had prepared all the necessary medicines. Moreover, this loss of Xian cultivation couldn't be recovered. So, it would have been a detriment to both sides. Take Bear Mountain and Long Crane's advancement as an example. Even if the lords of the 3 holy lands joined hands to help them, it would have been impossible. But these unrecoverable and impossible things didn't count for much in Jun Dashao's hands. Chapter 389. There was no other reason than the fact that the Hongjun Pagoda's aura was the natural nemesis of these sinister forces. Moreover, it was the most vigorous and pure energy in the world. In other words, it was the power of life. At the beginning of the world, the Hongmeng appeared. And it was because of the Hongmeng aura that all living things could be born. And Jun Moxie's Hongjun Pagoda was the source of this power. Of course, it had to be adapted to the local conditions. In fact, Jun Moxie's aura wouldn't be of any use if it was just a small cold or fever. Jun Moxie had always been very enthusiastic about the Tian Fa forest. So, Jun Moxie suddenly had an idea after he had helped Bear Mountain and Long Crane advance. After all, it was impossible for him to stay in the noisy secular world for a lifetime. And Jun Moxie was very tired of that kind of chaotic life. His life had just begun, but Jun Moxie was already thinking about going into seclusion after a long time. There would come a day when he would feel the loneliness of the pinnacle after he had settled his debts of gratitude and revenge. Then, he would have to find a quiet place to return to. And the Tian Fa forest was undoubtedly the most ideal place for Jun Moxie to go into seclusion. In fact, even a grass snake in the Tian Fa forest was much more amiable in Jun Moxie's eyes than those high-ranking officials who occupied the imperial court in the secular world. Because there was no scheming in the secular world here. Jun Moxie hated scheming to the extreme. Although he would often play some tricks, but this evil monarch still longed for a direct confrontation. Who was more powerful than the other? Wouldn't you know if you stretched out your fist to see? Why do you have to fight to the death? What's the point of wasting time? In fact, Jun Moxie had an idea, or rather, a grand blueprint. I will set the rules of this world if I climb to the top one day and look down on all living beings. I will use my method to limit this world. I don't care if you are Xin Xian or a supreme martial artist. Under my rules, no one can go against it. I have no intention of becoming the ruler of the world, but I want the world to understand my intentions. Every year, all profound practitioners would have to take part in the assessment. From the first level of low profound to the 12th level of Shen Xian, every level would have its own set of clothes. Only when you reached a certain level could you wear the same colored clothes. If you couldn't reach that level, you would have to wear your original clothes. Otherwise, he would not be responsible if he was killed. In this way, it would be like kindergarten to university in his previous life, with a clear hierarchy. And the headquarters of all this, the place that could control everything, the place where the overall decision was made, was the Tian Fa forest. The place where the evil prince would live in seclusion. Jun Moxie even imagined that perhaps it would be a good idea to use hats to determine the grade. As he thought about it, he couldn't help but smile, because he imagined an interesting scene. Two people meet, quarrel for a while, and just as they were about to fight, they saw each other's hats, and then they shook hands and chatted happily. Ah, so you're a cuckold, and I'm a black hat. Then I'm much lower than you, so why are we still fighting? Come, let's go drink my treat. Yes, look at your hat, it's really ugly. Black, hee, look at me, green, sparkling and cute. Admirable. You're actually wearing a green hat. You flatter me. Hee, as long as you work hard one day, you will also wear a green hat, hee. Thank you, I hope so, haha. As soon as Jun Moxie thought of such a scene, how could he not be carried away by a whim? He couldn't help but laugh. Jun Moxie would never have thought that this sudden whim of his would really become the supreme law of the Xian continent for thousands of years to come. The evil prince's law. 1,000 years of hard work. It was because of this, at this moment, all the beast kings were looking at this otherworldly expert in bewilderment. They couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on. But seeing him laughing so happily, they assumed that he was very confident about the Lion King and the Monkey King's old injuries. So, they couldn't help but feel relieved. That's right, how could he laugh so happily and so easily if he wasn't confident? Jun Moxie's mind wandered for a long time. Then he came back to his senses. He chuckled twice and said, "In that case, let's not delay any further. 6th Shi and 7th Ho, come to me. I'll immediately take a look at you. You might as well return to your human form as soon as possible. It'll be convenient for you to drink. The two of you sitting on the table in this form is really somewhat indecent." Jun Dashao thought, this is the first time this young master is drinking in the Tian Fa forest. Do I have to drink with a lion and a monkey? That's so embarrassing. Although I'll still be a lion and a monkey after transforming into human form, but at least I'll be in human form. Besides, isn't this to pave the way for the future? Therefore, Jun Dashao was very proactive. The Lion King's eyes were brimming with tears. He shook the white fur on his body like an exceptionally obedient puppy. He came to Jun Moxie and crouched down in front of him. He then wagged his tail. However, the frequency of wagging his tail had increased due to his excitement. and the wine cup in Bear Mountain's hand was thrown far away with a loud bang. The Beast Kings burst into laughter.
June Moxie didn't mind.
He didn't delay either. He pressed his hand on the cup. Then his breath sank, and the Hongjun Pagoda's aura erupted with a loud rumble. It was dazzling and brilliant, and it soared into the blue sky. The other 5 Beast Kings were shocked. So they hurriedly retreated. This time, June Moxie had done his utmost in order to finish this fight quickly. Moreover, it wasn't early. So he didn't have much time to waste. However, this extreme display of power wasn't as gentle as when he had helped Long Crane and Bear Mountain break through their barriers. The aura surged violently like a tidal wave and entered the Lion King's meridians. His broken meridians were connected in an instant. The unimaginably tyrannical impact caused the mighty and majestic Lion King to raise his head and let out a blood-curdling screech. Then, he spouted a mouthful of blood into the sky. Then, the aura that had been entangled in the Lion King's body for 60 years was expelled. In fact, it seemed as if the Beggar Clan's clan leader was using a dog-beating stick to beat up a stray dog. Then, a few thin arrows of blood sprayed out of his body. The turbulent aura of the heaven and earth had completed its task. Then, it revolved around the Lion King's meridians to ensure that there wasn't any residual aura left. Then it was withdrawn. Jun Mo Xie didn't open his eyes. Instead, he pushed the Lion King to one side and said in a cold voice, "Next." His tone was indifferent and overbearing. In fact, it seemed as if he was a doctor in a primary school. He hadn't even pulled out the needle, but he was already calling for the next one. What? It's over? This is too miraculous. Isn't it too miraculous? The Monkey King trembled as it moved forward. It occupied the Lion King's previous position. However, it didn't feel that it was ready. Then, it felt as if a mountain had been placed on its shoulders. Then, the aura of the heaven and earth poured into its body. Just as the Monkey King was about to let out a moan to express the pleasure in its heart, it didn't expect that an intense heart-wrenching pain would rise up in an instant. It immediately grit its teeth and let out a roar as it spat out a mouthful of thick black blood. It actually pierced through a large tree in front of it. It's too painful. My God. How can treating an illness be more painful than the torture of 1,000 cuts? This is the method of an expert. It's extraordinary. The Golden Monkey King was thinking this when he suddenly heard a burst of ecstatic cheers. Amidst his busy schedule and extreme pain, he glanced out of the corner of his eye. Immediately, his eyes widened to the maximum. Oh, my beast god. My God. It's a miracle. It's a living miracle. It was a strange, yet familiar figure. A tall and imposing man dressed in white was standing beside him. Isn't this the Lion King?
Damn, so fast.
It's almost instantaneous. Ah. The Monkey King was thoroughly envious. However, he was also thoroughly relieved. It doesn't matter how painful it is. As long as I can recover, a little pain is nothing. Let's make the pain more intense. At this moment, the Monkey King had completely forgotten about the extreme pain in his body. Instead, he felt ecstatic. Ecstatic from the bottom of his heart. He couldn't help but let out a few wild laughs of joy and excitement. His wild laughter startled the other Beast Kings. In fact, even Jun Mo Xie's aura fluctuated a little. Boss, when can you not laugh? Why do you have to go crazy at this critical moment? Even if you don't want to live, I still want to live. However, in the midst of extreme pain, he was laughing maniacally. This Monkey King's cultivation realm had truly surpassed that of Guan Yu, who scraped bones to cure poison in the 3 kingdoms. He's a real man. The black gas that had been trapped for many years shot out of the Monkey King's body along with the dark red blood arrow. Jun Moxie let out a breath and said, "All right. Everyone can have a good drink." When he raised his head, he discovered that the 6 Beast Kings were looking at him with a strange expression. This kind of gaze reminded Jun Mo Xie of the eyes of the pilgrims who had run through the snowy plains in his previous life. They were filled with fanaticism. Yes, fanaticism. Fanaticism from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if a monk had suddenly seen Buddha, a Taoist priest had suddenly seen Lao Taishang, or a reactionary had suddenly seen Hitler. He's definitely an idol. He's definitely a god. He's definitely sob, too amazing, too touching, too awesome. Jun Emos smiled in satisfaction as he looked at the 6 beast kings lined up in front of him. They were all in their human forms. Jun Emos forcefully stopped the 6 beast kings from bowing and expressing their gratitude. Then, he leisurely said a few words to dispel the beast king's intentions of expressing their gratitude. Do you think that I helped you because of your gratitude? This was a very simple and innocent sentence, but it caused all the beast kings to fall into deep thought. That's right, great kindness cannot be expressed with words of gratitude. Let's keep the words of gratitude in our hearts. What does a simple word of thanks count for? But if this expert is of use to us in the future, we can spare no effort to help him. Even if we lose our lives because of this, we won't hesitate. Why do we have to say it and ruin the atmosphere at this moment? For a moment, the same thought appeared in the hearts of all the beast kings. Although they didn't say any words of gratitude, regardless of whether it was their eyes or their actions, they all expressed their respect for this mysterious expert in front of them. Many of my friends said that you're in a good state these few days. Save more manuscripts and don't erupt so frequently. The end of the month will be the decisive moment. And at the beginning of October, there will be double the monthly votes. If you work so hard now, will you be able to do it at that time? Chapter 390. Today's Outbreak. The second chapter has arrived. The third and fourth chapters are in the evening. I'm going to eat first. I suddenly found my stomach sticking to my spine. Jun Moxie was leisurely drinking the wine. He was inhaling the wine's mist. He had finally understood the Xian beasts hierarchy. The so-called hierarchy of Xian beasts was much more detailed and rigorous than the hierarchy of human Xian beasts. A Xian beast at the peak of the 9th level had to go one step further to become a Xian beast king. Or, it could be said that they were qualified to challenge a Xian beast king. That was transformation. Some Xian beasts at the peak of the 9th level could transform into a human, while others couldn't. After the 9th level, there was the 10th level. This was the most difficult level for a Xian beast to advance. A Xian beast at the peak of the 9th level could automatically become a Xian beast king, as long as it could transform into a human. However, it was only after it had crossed the 10th level that it could be considered a genuine Xian beast king. A genuine Xian beast king. It wasn't just a king of a single race. And Jun Moxie had helped Bear Mountain and Long Crane to break through this hurdle. Of course, there were still a few more hurdles to go up. But Long Crane had said that no Xian beast had ever reached that level except for the Holy Emperor. So he hadn't mentioned it. Jun Moxie was holding a special wine cup. He pondered and said, "In other words, both of you are level 10 Xian beasts? And the 4 of them have already reached the peak of the 9th level?" The 6 beast kings nodded. "If that's the case, then wait for the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit to be refined. Then you should be able to advance to the next level." Jun Moxie said with some uncertainty. Da Xiao was sure that the elixir he was going to refine would be very effective. But he hadn't personally tested it. So he didn't know to what extent it would be effective. The 6 beast kings' eyes lit up. And their eyes burst with light. Advance to the next level. I've just advanced to the next level. So, what if I advance to the next level in 3 years? My God, this speed is like flying. The previous Xian beast kings of Tian Fa have never advanced so fast. 3 years might not be a short period of time for humans, but for Xian beasts with long lifespans, it was only a short period of time. One had to know that it was easy to advance a level, but the difference of one level was a long life force. For a moment, the 6 beast kings were breathing heavily. Their eyes were burning with passion. A moment of silence. Long Crane finally asked impatiently, Senior phone. You want to refine that divine pill. Do you still lack a few ingredients? Everyone pricked up their ears as soon as he said this. Sigh. That's true. And it's not just one. June Moxie let out a long sigh and suddenly opened his eyes. How do you know how many medicinal herbs are missing? Long Crane chuckled and said, I'm just guessing. Haha, I'm afraid that you'll be able to take out the spirit pill if you've already gathered the necessary ingredients. But you'll have to wait for 3 years with your ability. So, it's obvious that you're looking for the necessary ingredients. You'll need to gather them before you can start refining the spirit pill. Looking at the time limit, I'm afraid that the other medicinal ingredients that Senior needs are not ordinary. That's right. Crane King is indeed the Crane King. Your mind is very meticulous. June Moxie chuckled. His tone was a little hesitant and uncertain as he said, That's right. How can the spirit pill that I want to refine be ordinary? The 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit is rare, but it is only a catalyst. The rest of the spirit herbs still need to be gathered in large quantities. Once they have gathered to a certain extent, the medicinal properties will be extracted, and the myriad of spirit herbs will be transformed into tangible objects. Then, the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit will be used to refine the peerless spirit pill that I want to refine. June Moxie's tone was heavy as he spoke slowly. The 6 beast kings held their breaths and listened attentively. This heaven-defying spirit pill has a miraculous effect. One pill can increase an ordinary person's lifespan by at least 100 years. If a Xian cultivator were to take this pill, they would be able to advance from the Earth Xian level to the 2nd level of the Shen Xian level in a few short months. In fact, they might even become stronger. Moreover, they wouldn't suffer from qi deviation during this process. Nor would their spiritual energy be too violent. This is because the medicinal properties of the elixir will slowly spread along with the improvement of the user's cultivation. It can be said that there is no danger. In fact, it can be said to be a divine medicine that seizes the fortune of the heaven and earth. The sound of inhaling resounded in unison. The 12 eyes of the 6 beast kings opened wide like bronze bells. Their bodies were trembling with excitement. From an Earth Xian to the 2nd level of the Shen Xian level. 100 years of lifespan. There is no danger. Oh my God, what kind of spirit pill is this? It's driving me crazy. It's something I've been dreaming of.
Ah.
How many elixirs are we still lacking? Let's all think of a way. It'll be much faster than Senior collecting them by yourself. I don't mean anything by it. Senior's magical powers are vast, but you're only one person. We don't have Senior's magical powers. But we can take advantage of the fact that we have more people. So, we should be able to do our best. Bear Mountain's big and round eyes were emitting a green luster like a wolf's. He was speaking in a genteel manner. Yes. Our Tian Fa forest occupies a vast area. There are many heavenly treasures here. I believe that we can help Senior gather the medicinal ingredients as soon as possible. The other 5 beast kings were very enthusiastic. Some of them were licking their mouths as they spoke. They looked like they were gluttonous. This is also good. Since everyone is willing to help, it will save me the time of looking for it myself. This is indeed very helpful. Jun Moxie muttered to himself for a long time. Then he finally agreed. All the beast kings beamed with joy. The medicinal ingredients that I lack are dragon's beard grass, phoenix's tail flower, 9-knot lotus, continuous root, tricolor ganoderma, rainbow lotus root. June Moxie didn't stand on ceremony. He recited a long list. Then, he took a deep breath and continued. 1,000-year ginseng, white cinnabar fruit, 9 nether grass, 9 mysterious root, etc. The more the better. The 6 Xian beast kings were left dumbstruck. The Eagle King was the most quick-witted of them all. He had torn off a large piece of tree bark and used it as a piece of paper. Then he used his sharp nails as a pen and started to write from memory. Jun Moxie's wrist was almost sore when he finished reading. After that, Junmoxia explained to them one by one what these herbs looked like, what kind of environment they grew in, how to harvest them, etc. All the Beast Kings held their breaths and listened carefully, afraid that they would miss out on the slightest detail. This was an important matter that concerned their advancement, so they could not be careless. Of course, I believe that it is impossible to collect so many precious medicinal ingredients in one go, even with the power of Tianfa. You can collect as many as you can. You can send people to the Jun family in Tianxiang City after you have collected a batch. Then you can slowly prepare the next batch. I will go there every once in a while. Junmoxi laughed and said, In that case, you will be responsible for the collection of Tianfa's elixirs. And I will go to the extreme north in these 3 years to collect the elixirs there. We can definitely succeed in one go if we work on both sides. Junmoxi thought that he would have to go to the extreme north soon after this promotion. So he might as well do a few things at the same time, including picking the elixirs. The third uncle waited in a daze. There was a beautiful woman on the snowy peak looking up at him. 10 years. How many 10 years could one have in a person's life? How many 10 years could one's lover wait? When their hair turned white like frost, and they became old and clumsy. Even if they reunited, what could they do? Apart from this matter, the Dongfang family also had another vow, sword edge collapsing the snowy mountain. Junmoxi very much wanted to see the spectacular scene of the snowy mountain collapsing. Junmoxi had long been prepared to personally create this spectacle. These things should be done sooner rather than later. Therefore, Junmoxi had been preparing for this. After the Tianfa forest, the trip to the Silver Blizzard City had been put on the agenda, even though his strength was still lacking. However, this kid's heart could not be said to be not black. When the Beast Kings had asked, he had directly listed out all the medicinal ingredients that he had obtained from the Hongjun Pagoda with great difficulty. Even if the 6 Beast Kings wanted to collect all these ingredients, they might not be able to do so even if they spent their entire lives. Junmoxi's main purpose in coming to Tianfa this time was to collect some heavenly treasures. He had collected a lot of them the last time, but it was still far from enough for his needs. This time, Long Crane and the others had taken the initiative to bring it up. For Junmoxi, this was exactly what he wanted. Therefore, he straightforwardly and bluntly listed out all the elixirs that he needed. This way, it would save him a lot of effort. There were so many medicinal ingredients. Moreover, they were all heavenly treasures that could only grow in the heaven and earth spiritual chi. If he were to rely on himself to collect them, he reckoned that he wouldn't be able to collect them even in 8 lifetimes. Moreover, he had made use of the Beast Kings this time. But they wouldn't be at a disadvantage as long as everyone had a share when the pills were refined. So he believed that it would be worth it for them. In fact, it might even be worth it. Therefore, Junmoxi didn't feel guilty at all. In fact, it could be said that he had a clear conscience. The Beast Kings didn't have any misgivings about Junmoxi's request. So, they solemnly vowed to agree. Then they decided that they would put all their efforts into finding these elixirs even if they had to put all their other matters on hold. After all, this was related to the advancement of the Beast Kings. So, how could they not be attentive? Moreover, Lei Baoyu and the others had profaned the dignity of Tianfa. That was enough to ignite the hearts of the Beast Kings. They had sought to advance, but couldn't in the past.
But they could advance now.
The 4 great Beast Kings were living examples in front of them. Moreover, they had finally found an effective way to contact this peerless expert, the Jun family of Tianxiang City. Well, they were even more confident now that they had such a goal. In fact, the Beast Kings were already calculating in their hearts. Should I volunteer to personally escort the elixirs to Tianxiang City when the first batch of elixirs is almost complete? Maybe I can get a share of the loot first. All the Beast Kings had this idea in their minds for a moment. And their complexions became somewhat strange. They looked at their brothers and felt that they wouldn't give up such an opportunity. It seemed that internal strife would be unavoidable when the time came. Chapter 391. Floating in the air, Jun Moxie's mood was exceptionally good, and he almost wanted to sing a song. He didn't expect that everything would go so smoothly. What he didn't know was that if it had been anyone else, even if they had the same conditions, they wouldn't have been able to do the same. The key was the Hongjun Pagoda. The Hongjun Pagoda's aura made even these beast kings feel a sense of familiarity from the bottom of their hearts. At the very least, their first impression of it was the strongest, and they inexplicably developed a very good impression of it. Wouldn't it be logical for them to do anything? Looking at the surrounding situation, Jun Moxie wanted to find the right direction to leave quickly. He looked around and suddenly exclaimed in surprise. This place wasn't far from the place where he had met the little beast last time. It was almost not far from the courtyard wall, formed by a row of towering trees. The scenery here couldn't help but evoke Jun Moxie's good impressions from the last time. With a whoosh, he rushed over. If I could have caught that extremely adorable little fellow and brought him back to my bosom, how fun would that have been? Its soft flesh would have been so comfortable to pinch, especially that little butt. I wouldn't get tired of pinching it 100 times. It would have been so refreshing. It had to be said that Jun Dashao's way of thinking was quite vile. When other people saw cute little animals, they couldn't wait to take good care of them. Take Little White, for example. The little girl couldn't wait to love him, but he didn't care about it at all. That little fellow from last time was extremely adorable, and this guy's way of looking after him was also different from ordinary people. He only thought of grabbing it back and pinching it, but for no reason. What a really bad taste. Dashao excitedly entered the small valley, hoping to reunite with the little beast after a long time. His eyes were filled with the familiar colors, and the fragrance assailed his nostrils. However, it was empty inside, and not the slightest sound could be heard. Jun Moxie took 2 steps forward. The valley was filled with silence, and he could only hear the soft rustling of his own footsteps. It was obviously full of vitality, but it was as silent as a dead zone. The scenery inside the valley formed an unusually sharp contrast with this silence. This kind of comparison made people feel extremely strange. Jun Moxie carefully searched around again, but found nothing. He walked to the stone room and saw that the black robe from that day was still quietly spread on the ground. Apart from that, there was nothing else. As for that adorable little beast, it was nowhere to be seen. Jun Moxie didn't give up and went out to search with his spirit sense. What if the little guy had gone out to look for food? Jun Moxie's spiritual sense had become much stronger since he had entered the 3rd level of the art of unlocking the heavens fortune. In fact, it was a far cry from what it had been before. Originally, he could only search within a radius of a few dozen feet, but now it had expanded to a distance. The strength of the eldest young master's divine sense had already reached the level of a supreme being. However, this wasn't the result of the Hongjun Pagoda's spiritual sense. Instead, it was the result of Jun Moxie's Sky Xian's spiritual sense, who would have believed that a mere initial-level Tian Xian could have such a powerful divine sense? How could a mere initial-level Tian Xian have such a powerful divine sense? Jun Moxie's thoughts followed the expansion of his divine sense. He slowly examined his surroundings bit by bit. However, they didn't find any clues at all. It was still silent, a deathly silence. How can this be? Although the last time I came here, it was also very peaceful. But now, it's deathly silent like a ghost town. How can I not be suspicious? This is the core of the Tian Fa forest. Even the ordinary high-level Xian beasts don't dare to stay here. Could it be that even the peak level 9 Xian beasts don't dare to stay here? Through his previous communication with the 6 Xian beast kings, Dashao unexpectedly found out that there were many other peak level 9 Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest besides the 6 Xian beast kings. It's just that they haven't succeeded in transforming. The deathly stillness in front of me shouldn't be happening, right? Jun Moxie made up his mind. He launched his divine sense to the fullest. Like an invisible arrow, he shot into the depths of the forest. Just as Jun Moxie exerted his full strength and expanded the radius of his divine sense to more than 200 feet, he discovered the sounds of Xian beasts' activities in the east, west, and north. Only the south was still deathly silent. It seemed that the source of this strange phenomenon was in the south. Jun Moxie withdrew his divine sense from the other 3 directions. He narrowed the search area and focused on the south. He was convinced that there must be something fishy about such a strange phenomenon happening in a place like the Tian Fa forest.
Suddenly,
his divine sense, which had always been successful in every endeavor, suddenly seemed to have bumped into an abnormally viscous place. Even with the young master's powerful divine sense, he was unexpectedly powerless to break through and advance. In fact, he couldn't even retreat. This feeling was like an insect flying in the air had bumped into a spider's web. Jun Moxie was shocked. He hastily withdrew his divine sense with all his strength. At this moment, a powerful divine sense suddenly came head-on. It fiercely collided with Jun Moxie's divine sense.
Boom.
Jun Moxie felt that his divine sense, which was not weak at all, had no room to resist this powerful divine sense that had suddenly appeared. There was a roar in his head. In a split second, he felt dizzy and fell to the ground. His eyes, ears, mouth, and nose involuntarily overflowed with fine blood. This was because Da Xiao's current physical body had reached a rather tyrannical level. If it was his physical body from a few days ago, he would have been seriously injured under the backlash of such a divine sense collision. Jun Moxie's current divine sense had already reached the valiant level of a supreme master. He didn't expect that under the pressure of the powerful divine sense opposite him, he could not even withstand a single blow and was defeated like a landslide. Although the other party was suspected to have launched a sneak attack, the other party's powerful divine sense was still unquestionable. The person who possessed such a powerful divine sense definitely had a cultivation above the supreme master level. Even if this person's strength was not as strong as Venerable Mei's, he was more or less an expert of the same level. Could it be that there was such an expert hidden in the Tian Fa forest? In that case, the foundation of the Tian Fa forest was too strong. Previously, he was a little worried that the Tian Fa forest would be at a disadvantage in the conflict between the big foreign lands a few years later. This was also one of the main reasons why Jun Moxie did his best to help the few major beast kings break through their bottlenecks and heal their injuries. Da Xiao really liked the simplicity and peacefulness of the few major beast kings. In order to let them have enough ability to protect themselves, he naturally had to improve their strength. However, if Tian Fa had hidden another super expert, then the significance of helping the few major beast kings wouldn't be as great as it was originally. Perhaps the significance to the few major beast kings wouldn't change, but the significance to the future of the entire Tian Fa forest would be a completely different matter. In the face of such a majestic and terrifying divine sense, Jun Moxie couldn't help but turn pale with fright even with his calmness and steadiness. This was because the impact hadn't ended yet. His own divine sense had completely retreated. However, the other party's divine sense was relentlessly chasing after him. It seemed as if it wouldn't stop until Da Xiao was destroyed. Jun Moxie's thoughts turned at lightning speed. He forcefully endured the pain in his mind, and barely used the remaining bit of clarity in his heart to activate the powerful aura of the Hongjun Pagoda's divine sense. It was like a sharp sword that could cut through the blue dome of heaven, and went head-on against the divine sense that was chasing after him. The power of the Hongjun Pagoda's divine sense was naturally not something that Da Xiao's own divine sense could compare to. It was far more extraordinary. This desperate counterattack easily intercepted the terrifying divine sense that was chasing after him and launched another wave of intense battle. The other party's divine sense was also very intelligent. In a flash, it had already determined that the second wave of divine sense was far more powerful than its own. Both sides retreated as soon as the two sides collided. Jun Moxie's damaged divine sense was finally withdrawn from the sticky area with the help of the Hongjun Pagoda and returned to his body. Under the protection of the Hongjun Pagoda's divine sense, it slowly returned. On the other side, an extremely tragic howl suddenly rang out from the distant south. It was obvious that this person's cultivation was extremely high, and his reaction speed was also very fast. However, he was still not a match for this kind of ancient divine object under the powerful counterattack of the Hongjun Pagoda. In addition, he had originally held the upper hand and had been caught off guard. Even during the second round of battle, his reaction speed was still very fast. He immediately retreated the moment he saw that he was no match for the other party. However, he still couldn't avoid suffering heavy injuries. The volume of this howl was extremely low, but it was extremely penetrating. The leaves on the flowering tree beside Jun Moxie also rustled and fell, and the sound spread far away. Jun Moxie's heart had finally returned to normal after his divine sense returned to his body. The feeling of powerlessness in his body had also disappeared. Jun Moxie wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were like a lonely wolf on a cold winter's night. He fiercely looked towards the south. There was another super strong expert there. There was a place over there that even the invisible and intangible divine sense couldn't penetrate. What was that place? What kind of person was there? Jun Moxie jumped up and used the yin-yang escape technique with all his strength. He instantly crossed the distance between the two places with a frightening speed of 1,000 miles per step and disappeared on the spot. I must go and experience such a strange place for myself. I've already set my eyes on the Tian Fa forest. I want to make this place my future home. So, how can I not be aware of the mysterious phenomenon of such a strange existence, as well as the existence of that powerful person? That person and that place are definitely a huge hidden danger. What appeared in front of Jun Moxie was a strange, milky, white fog. It was strange to say that this fog was strange. Before turning around the mountain, there was no sign of its existence at all. Even when observing from the sky, there was no sign of its existence. But after turning around, it covered the sky and covered the earth. As far as the eye could see, there was only this kind of white fog, boundless, vast and boundless. This kind of white fog was extremely strange. It was different from the ordinary fog, and it wasn't the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was so thick that it seemed to be a real substance. In the white fog, one couldn't even see their fingers if they stretched out their hands. That feeling was like a real substance. Although it seemed soft and fragile, it was actually extremely tough. There was another strange thing about this white fog. Although the divine sense couldn't penetrate it, the physical body could. Jun Moxie gave it a try and stretched his arm in. He only felt that it was empty, without any obstruction. It was very clear that there was an extremely vast space inside. But when Jun Moxie tried to use his divine sense to penetrate the white fog, he felt that the previous sticky feeling appeared again. It was as if he had fallen into a thick liquid. He couldn't move forward at all. In front of the divine sense, the white fog was extremely tough. It was like using one's finger to hold up a balloon. With a little bit of force, the balloon could sink in, but it wouldn't burst. That was the feeling that Jun Moxie felt when he released his divine sense. It was really strange. It was the first time that he found a strange place where his body could enter, but his divine sense couldn't. It seemed that the mysterious part of the Tian Fa forest still existed. Chapter 392. Jun Moxie had no choice but to go in. And that was because he was about to withdraw when he discovered a vine at the edge of the white mist. It had several leaves attached to it. The leaves were heptagonal in shape and were as red as blood. Moreover, the veins of the leaves were clearly visible. In fact, it seemed as if they were about to bulge out of the surface of the leaves. The vine was unusually slender and snow-white in color. At first glance, it seemed very soft. However, upon touching it, one would realize that this vine was as hard as steel. The 9-xian root. This was the 9-xian root vine leaf that he had been searching for. Jun Moxie was overjoyed. Grandpa Jun had consumed the last ingredient required for the advancement of the Xian Dan. He didn't expect to see it here. How could Jun Moxie let it go? Even if there were dangers inside, Jun Moxie must obtain the 9-xian root. The 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit certainly had the same effect. However, it was far beyond his reach. Not to mention the fact that most of the ingredients were still missing, Da Xiao was unable to refine it with his current cultivation level. He simply couldn't afford to wait any longer. Besides, after taking the Xian Dan, he could still refine the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit again. That was equivalent to advancing twice. If he were to use the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit to refine the spirit pill, then the original recipe would no longer have any effect. Unexpectedly, Jun Mo Xie, whom she had yearned for even in her dreams, had launched the yin-yang escape in high spirits. However, he was disappointed once again. The yin-yang escape art, which had been unstoppable in the past, and the invincible creation divine ability, had actually encountered an obstacle here. He could go left or right, but once he came into contact with the white fog, he would feel as if he had fallen into a swamp. Every step forward would consume a huge amount of spiritual energy. Now that he was trapped, Jun Moxie was experiencing this feeling. This was obviously a mountain of cotton that looked like a floating mountain. However, after entering, he could not see anything except for the shining white cotton. Under such circumstances, his eyes had become mere decorations. A single color could actually form such a strange concealment effect. The Tian Fa forest actually had such a wonderful place. Jun Moxie was completely astonished. Of course, he didn't dare to rashly cancel the yin-yang escape and directly use his physical strength to enter. If that was the case, wouldn't he become a living target for the hidden experts inside? He didn't even know that he had been tricked to death. Although activating the yin-yang escape consumed a lot of spiritual qi, it could ensure that he was completely invisible. Even if the person inside had the ability to see through heaven and earth, he would absolutely not be able to see him. This was where his greatest advantage lay. How could the creation divine ability be ordinary? Jun Moxie was trapped in this wonderful environment. His hand was gently moving along the rattan of the 9 profound root, and he was slowly advancing inside, as if he was sleepwalking. He wasn't worried in the slightest because he'd already tested it. Even though it wasn't easy to move forward, it was extremely easy to retreat and escape. He only needed a thought to get out. Therefore, his safety was still guaranteed. Jun Moxie would only choose to move forward in such a strange place once his safety was guaranteed. He wouldn't step in if there was even a little danger. This was the cautiousness of the king of assassins. However, Jun Moxie wouldn't return so easily. That was because he was determined to obtain the 9 Xian root. Jun Moxie's body had disappeared from that valley. The 6 Xian beast kings were drinking wine and celebrating several kilometers away. But they had also clearly heard this muffled and miserable howl from the south. Everyone was startled. Then, it seemed as if they had thought of something at the same time. And they jumped up as if their butts were on fire. That's the direction of the Tian Fa cave. Long Crane's voice was filled with panic and fear. It's the real Tian Fa cave. Bear Mountain and the other 4 Xian beast kings' complexions turned pale. They didn't dare to be the slightest bit negligent and rushed towards that direction with all their strength. I don't know if it's because of that senior Feng from a while ago. We had been drinking wine a while ago. Moreover, he was in a hurry to leave. So, we forgot to remind him that he can't go there. Tiger King Earthcracker was somewhat anxious. Beads of sweat had started to appear on his forehead. He asked in an urgent voice as he sped away. It's hard to say. Eagle King Sky Splitter's face turned even darker. His eagle eyes were looking at the dark curtain of night ahead. Who would dare to barge into the Tian Fa forest apart from that senior Feng? Would you dare? Ho Chi's complexion was very anxious. He was somewhat impatient as he spoke up. Let's hurry over. We must ask for leniency for him to leave if it's because of that senior Feng. This Monkey King had just received a great favor. So, how could he allow his benefactor to have an accident in his territory? Bear Mountain snorted and said, it's still too early to say anything. Who will have the upper hand? It's hard to say who will plead for leniency for whom. But I hope that old Bear's face is big enough. It could be seen from these words that Bear Mountain's confidence in this mysterious expert had reached an unparalleled level. Of course, it wasn't clear whether old Bear's face was big enough or not. But his face was certainly thick enough. In fact, he might not be number one in the world. But he would at least be peerless. Shut up. What time is this? Let's get there first. Long Crane turned his head and shouted. He felt that running on the ground was too slow. So, he suddenly jumped up with a schwaff sound. Then, he somersaulted in midair and reverted to his original form. He had transformed into a majestic and beautiful white crane. Then, he flapped his wings and flew over with a schwa sound. Bear Mountain saw him jump up and understood his intention. So he also jumped up. In fact, he jumped even higher than Long Crane. He was waiting for Long Crane to return to his original form. Then he would land on the ground, and the two of them would go together. The two Beast Kings had cooperated in this manner for decades. So, they were very familiar with each other. However, they had miscalculated this time. Long Crane was very impatient this time. So, he somersaulted in midair and returned to his original form. Bear Mountain saw that he had finally returned to his original form. So, he hastily withdrew his energy and descended. But Long Crane suddenly dashed out with a schwa sound as he was descending. I've completely screwed up. There was a loud bang, and Bear Mountain's burly body, which weighed several hundred kilograms, fell down from midair. Then, he landed heavily on the ground and created a huge crater. However, he had been caught unprepared. So he had been caught off guard. So, he hadn't been injured because of his thick skin. But there wasn't a single part of his body that didn't hurt. So, Bear King sat on the ground and started cursing. The other Beast Kings were in no mood to care about him. So, they swept past him. The Eagle King was the kindest of them all. He returned to his original form behind Bear Mountain and grabbed his clothes with his mouth. Then, he soared into the sky and threw Bear Mountain onto his back. His speed didn't slow down, and he shot towards the south like a black arrow. The 6 Beast Kings had high cultivation. So, they arrived at the forbidden area within a few breaths' time. They looked at the thick white fog in front of them. It seemed as if it hadn't made any sound since ancient times. The 6 Beast Kings carefully examined their surroundings. But they didn't find any traces of anyone coming here. So, they were relieved. What they didn't know was that June Moxie had used the Yin-Yang escape to come here. So how could he have left any traces? It would be a real miracle if such a creation divine art would leave any traces behind. It seems like no one has come. It's a good thing that no one has come. Long Crane heaved a sigh of relief and said, an ordinary person can't enter the forbidden area. So, it should be fine. It's better to ask. Just now, the sound that came out from the forbidden area was extremely heart-wrenching, Bucho sure said worriedly. We all know that if it wasn't for extreme pain, one would definitely not make that kind of sound. Ho Chi objected, sometimes, the pain that one needs to experience during a breakthrough in cultivation is also extremely difficult to endure. Perhaps that's why the sound just now came out. Although this kind of sound is not common in the Tian Fa forest, it is not rare either. Is there a need to make such a fuss? You're right. It's common for high-level Xian beasts to make such a sound when they practice. But have you ever heard of such a sound coming from the forbidden area? Bucho sure retorted sarcastically. Long Crane thought for a moment. Then, he finally mustered his strength and asked, the current Crane King of Tian Fa, Long Crane, has come to pay his respects. Does the senior of the Holy Land have any instructions for me? His deep and resounding voice was transmitted into the white fog. A long while passed. Then, an angry voice was heard from the white fog. Pay your respects. Hurry up and get the hell out of my grandma. The 6 Beast Kings looked at each other in amazement. They stared at each other for a while. Then, they dejectedly returned the way they had come. The 6 of them were very unlucky. The person inside had been caught off guard by Jun Moxie using the Hongjun Pagoda's enormous spiritual sense. So, they had suffered a huge defeat. So, they were lamenting the fact that their heroes were past their prime. So, they were extremely anxious. But, the 6 Beast Kings had chosen this time to pay their respects. The 6 monarchs didn't dare to complain in the slightest, even though they had just eaten a hot fart. Instead, they left faster than anything else, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. A voice was heard from the thick fog after a while. Damn it. I forgot to ask them if anyone had come in. What kind of guy is so troublesome? His spiritual sense is so powerful that it's terrifying. I'm afraid that we would have died if we hadn't pulled back in time. Jun Moxie was operating the Inyang escape with all his strength. So, it was very difficult for him to pass through the thick fog. He couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. It seems that the guy inside isn't very smart. How can a human's strength or a beast's strength contend against the Hongjun Pagoda's spiritual sense? But that guy was able to preserve his life under the full force of the Hongjun Pagoda's counterattack. In fact, he didn't even sustain any serious injuries. So, that's very impressive. He followed the 9 Xianvine step by step. And he was extremely cautious with each step. Jun Moxie didn't believe that the person inside was living in such a sticky environment. That person would have died. Moreover, he had been leading the 9 Xianvine all the way here. But he hadn't bumped into any trees or vegetation. This is abnormal. The 9 Xianvine exists in this place. So, how can there be no other plants and vegetation? This doesn't make any sense. Jun Moxie didn't know how far he had gone. But he finally felt that the white fog in front of him had become thinner. So, his spirits rose, and he advanced in that direction with all his strength. Jun Moxie suddenly felt his entire body loosen up. He had finally passed through the thick, white fog. He looked around and saw that he was in an open space. The white fog was still thick all around him. He couldn't see the sky or the sun. He couldn't see anything to his left or right. As far as he could see, he could only see a radius of a few hundred feet. Apart from that, there was nothing else but the thick white fog that seemed to stretch on endlessly. There was a clump of trees not far in front of him. And there seemed to be a hillside in the distance. But it was shrouded by the white fog. He could clearly see the faint white fog in the midst of the flowers, grass, and trees. The white fog was thinner in the densely forested areas. And the white fog was thicker in the sparsely forested areas. Jun Moxie finally saw the light. He still didn't know what this white fog was. But he knew one thing. The strange white fog would be less in the lush forested areas. On the contrary, it would be more in the densely forested areas. Jun Moxie heaved a sigh as he looked at the boundless white fog. It seems like there aren't many trees and flowers in this place. It's no wonder that the 9 Xian root, such an eccentric and poisonous plant, can grow in this place. The 9 Xian root's main body was growing and spreading along a thick pine tree. Jun Moxie discovered that the trees in the middle of the white fog weren't very tall. The tallest tree was only a dozen or so meters tall. But each of them was very thick. The dense white fog in the sky had probably restricted the growth of the trees. So they could only grow horizontally. However, Jun Moxie didn't understand one thing. There was no sunlight in this place. So, how could the trees survive? Not to mention that they had been growing for thousands of years. Jun Moxie heaved a sigh. He didn't want to think about these difficult questions anymore. The Tian Fa forest was full of mysteries. And these mysteries weren't something that he could unravel with his current strength. The reason why the Inyang escape was so difficult to move forward in this place was probably because his skill hadn't reached the required level yet. But he would definitely unravel these mysteries one day. And the Tian Fa forest would have completely accepted him at that time. But he didn't want to think about these forbidden areas at the moment. He just needed to dig out the 9 Xian root. Jun Moxie was about to move. But he heard a soft sound coming from the forest. It sounded like a snort from an animal. Jun Moxie looked in the direction of the sound. A huge golden-furred bear slowly stood up from the shroud of the white fog. Then it stretched its huge waist. It was a ninth-grade peak-level Xian beast. Jun Moxie didn't want to complicate things. So, he dived into the ground and dug out the 9 Xian root. The unique fragrance of the 9 Xian root became even clearer in the soil. Jun Moxie held it in his hands. He was overjoyed. The milky white 9 Xian root was sparkling and translucent like jade in his hands. The age of the 9 Xian root was very strict. It was black when it was born. After 10 years, it would turn brown. After 100 years, it would turn yellow. After 1,000 years, it would turn red. Only the 9 Xian root that had grown for more than 10,000 years would turn milky white. This was the best quality 9 Xian root. Jun Moxie hadn't expected to find such a big surprise in this place. The size of this 9 Xian root wasn't small. It could be used to concoct medicine for Grandpa Jun. However, most of it could still be used to concoct various divine pills. Jun Moxie's mind moved. He put the 9 Xian root into the Hongjun pagoda. He was so happy that he forgot himself. He let out a long laugh. And whistling sounds came from all directions. It turned out that there was more than one level 9 Xian beast in this place. Furthermore, from the scanning of his spiritual sense, Jun Moxie discovered that there were actually quite a few spiritual senses similar to the one he'd clashed with earlier. Jun Moxie's body couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Oh my god. Why are there so many powerful beings hidden in this place? However, he didn't dare to delay any longer. So, he rushed out with a whooshing sound. It took a lot of effort to get in, but it was easy to get out. In fact, it only took him a moment to escape from the range of the white fog. He looked at the strange white fog from afar. Jun Moxie's mouth revealed a smile. He then muttered, "I will be back." Definitely. There was a huge rock in front of him. A few large characters were engraved on it. And Jun Moxie finally understood what this place was. Tian Fa Cave. This is one of the most mysterious places in the world. Tian Fa Cave. Not bad. Not bad. It's worthy of being called a legendary mysterious place. Jun Moxie laughed in his heart. His body was like a light breeze as he welcomed the first glimmer of dawn in the sky. Then he swaggered off towards Tiannan City. It was truly a bountiful harvest. Moreover, it was an unexpected bountiful harvest. This bountiful harvest made Jun Moxie extremely satisfied. Not only did Jun Moxie prepare all the medicinal ingredients for the Xiandan for Grandpa Jun, he had also distributed all the medicinal ingredients needed for the concoction of the Xiandan. With the richness of the medicinal ingredients in Tian Fa Forest, after thousands of years of accumulation, what kind of heaven and earth elixirs could not be found there? Basically, with the exception of some heaven and earth elixirs that could only grow in special environments, Tian Fa Forest could be found everywhere. How much effort would this save him? Moreover, he had a good relationship with the beast kings of Tian Fa. They were practically wearing the same pair of pants. This was an extremely powerful help. The current Jun Moxie still looked like the debauchee he had been half a year ago. But Jun Moxie's hidden and visible foundation had already reached an astonishing level. The Jun family's military power in Tianxiang City could not be ignored. They had a large foundation among the people. Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang had been helping Jun Moxie take care of the underground gangs in the capital. Everything was in order. At least, they knew all the movements in the capital like the back of their hands. In terms of business, the genius businessman, Tang Yuan, was haggling over the smallest details. The aristocratic hall of the capital was like a money-making tree. Moreover, it was the kind of money-making tree that shook several times a day in terms of personal strength. Jun Tian was at the peak of Tian Xian. Jun Wui was at the intermediate level of Tian Xian. Jun Moxie was at the primary level of Tian Xian. And all three of them were about to be promoted. Especially Jun Tian and Jun Wui. In Jun Moxie's plan, they were already real Shen Xian experts in terms of external help. One of the 8 great masters, Solitary Eagle, was now a guest at the Jun family. He was also Jun Moxie's grandmother. The Dongfang family's oath was about to be broken by Jun Moxie. At that time, it would be another world-shaking assassin force. Just his three uncles were already Xin Xian. Even if the Dongfang family's strength was inferior, how could it be? In the distant Tian Fa forest, there were still 6 Xian beast kings working hard to prepare elixirs for him. It could be said that as long as Jun Moxie used his mysterious identity, he could mobilize the peak level 9 Xian beasts and Xian beast kings in the Tian Fa forest to help him in battle. This was not an impossible thing. Moreover, this was what these guys were looking for. Jun Xie had invented a mysterious expert, and that was the most awesome of them all. Who in the world didn't know that the Jun family had such an awesome and peerless master behind them? This invisible deterrent was the Jun family's greatest reliance at the moment. Who in the world would dare to compete with the Jun family because of this? Didn't they see that the second great master, Li Ju Tian, had turned into ashes? Moreover, the Bailey family's genius, Bailey Luo Yun, was waiting in the southern Heaven City. Recruiting Bailey Luo Yun was also related to Jun Moxie's big plan. It could be said that the current Jun Xie, even in this world of mortals, already possessed a decisive power. Chapter 393. In Tiannan City. After Jun Moxie left Guan Qinghan's tent, the exhausted Guan Qinghan closed her eyes and lay on her bed. Because Da Xiao was by her side, her spirit was always very tense, and her heart was not distracted. How could she care about other things? As soon as Da Xiao left, her cold mind instantly slackened. All the fatigue and pain attacked her at the same time. Only then did she feel that there was no part of her body that was not in pain. Even a very subtle movement would cause abnormally severe pain. It's all that damn enemy's doing. How could he be so painful? Guan Qinghan's entire body felt weak. She didn't even feel like moving her little finger. 2 streams of tears streamed down her cheeks. It wasn't because she regretted helping the young master to expel the effects of the drug. Nor was it because she resented Jun Xie. Instead, it was because she was in too much pain. She was the only person in this place. So, her tears were the only way to alleviate this pain. There was no doubt that in the previous sudden storm, although Guan Qinghan had been passively bearing it and had long been mentally prepared, she still inevitably exhausted every bit of her physical strength and profound strength. Now, she felt that from her bones to her muscles, there was no place in her body that could release any strength. Guan Qinghan felt a little surprised that her eyeballs could still move. The 2 lines of clear tears were almost the only reaction she could make. In fact, when she used up the last of her strength to stand up in Jun Moxie's tent and put on her clothes in order to protect her dignity and pride, she was already like this. However, she didn't want to show her weakness in front of Jun Moxie. She kept telling herself that this was a mistake. In order to save him, in order to save the only descendant of the 3rd generation of the Jun family, she had no other choice. After this incident, there would be no trace of the spring dream. They would have nothing to do with each other, and there would be no need to do so. Although she wanted to, she couldn't convince herself. You are my woman. This is the truth. Jun Xie's domineering face and unquestionable tone when he'd said those words had appeared in front of her eyes over and over again like a dream. She'd then replayed it over and over again. Once everything settles down, I'll marry you. It was still that man's voice. Was it a promise? Was it a wish? Wasn't that a mistake? Really? But why am I so afraid? But in my heart, why is there still a trace of shyness and happiness? Even if I did it to save the only descendant of the 3rd generation of the Jun family, why didn't I die to apologize to the world? Why didn't I use my life to protect the reputation of the 2 families? I didn't even think of doing so.
Why?
Am I actually a shameless woman?
Why?
Lying quietly on the bed, Guan Qinghan's thoughts were like a tide, surging endlessly, as if she had completely forgotten about the discomfort in her body. His face suddenly turned red, then white, and then red again, all the way to his neck, alternating back and forth. 2 lines of tears slowly flowed down from the corners of her eyes, soaking her satin-like black hair. But this time, it wasn't because of the pain. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. After an unknown amount of time, it seemed as if someone was talking outside, but Guan Xinghan didn't care. At this time, how could she be in the mood to care about such trivial matters? But even if you weren't in the mood to care, things would still come to bother you. The curtain of the tent was lifted, and a small head poked its head inside. It looked around furtively, and then tiptoed inside. "Elder Sister Guan, are you all right?" Dugu Xiaoyi's face was full of shame and loss. She looked at Guan Xinghan with tearful eyes, and then carefully sat on the edge of the bed. The little girl's figure had visibly thinned out in the middle of the night. The little girl was born in one of the largest families in the entire Tian Empire. But the younger generation of this huge family were all boys except for her. So, Dugu Xiaoyi was the only red in the middle of the green. So, the amount of love and care she received was unimaginable. In this era, men and women were the most guarded against each other. Even an ordinary girl from an ordinary family would have to abide by the rules before she was married. She would have to be strictly guarded for fear that the slightest bit of bad news would spread. So, how could a super family like the Dugu family be able to do that? Not to mention others, even the servants in the family had to be vigilant at all times. If anyone dared to say something that shouldn't be said in front of the madam and miss, it would be an unforgivable crime. There was an old master, 3 great generals, 7 ruthless young masters, and more than 20 young madams, the old lady. Which one of them couldn't decide the life and death of the servants? If some indecent things were to be spread to the little princess' ears, the consequences would be unimaginable. Not to mention, the little girl was only 16 years old this year. What could she know? For the young girls in this era, it was only on the night before they got married, when the mother and the child were blushing together. Only then would the mother give a few simple pointers, and then bestow an erotic silk to the daughter. Then, she would sneakily let the daughter keep it close to her body. Of course, there would also be a piece of white handkerchief that she would carry with her at all times, indicating the purpose of it. Then, she would send her mother's most trusted personal nanny to escort her to the wedding. At this time, the real enlightenment would begin. That was how to do certain things and so on. This loyal and devoted old nanny would teach her by example. Cough, cough, cough. Even her own mother would be too shy to talk about it in front of her own daughter. Therefore, the fact that Dugu Xiaoyi knew so much and even knew the ambiguous phrase, cooked rice, was already quite an amazing thing. Dugu Xiaoyi's ignorance was the most normal, the cutest, and the purest. On the contrary, if a girl from a respectable family like her knew everything in this aspect, she could quickly pick up the cart and spontaneously pose when the man said old man. How fucking terrifying would it be? Not to mention other things. Who would dare to marry such a daughter-in-law in this era? Even if he forced himself to marry her, he would not be happy for the rest of his life. Looking at the culprit in front of her, Guan Xinghan had a complicated look in her eyes. She didn't know why she couldn't feel any hatred at all, even though she had suffered so much because of her. Wasn't it because of her that she had lost her virginity, which was as precious as her life, and suffered so much pain? It was her who thought she was smart enough to cook some rice. The firewood was burning and the rice was cooked, but she was scared away by the rice that she had cooked, and then she took advantage of it. Wait a minute. Why did she say took advantage of her? Obviously, she was the one who suffered undeserved calamity. How could this be called taken advantage? It's so painful. It's so painful. How much did I suffer? Thinking of this, Guan Xinghan's face suddenly burned like a fire, but she didn't know whether it was because of anger or shame. Sister Xinghan, I'm really sorry about that. I didn't mean it. I really didn't know it would turn out like this. Dugu Xiaoyi had a sad face, and her face was full of heartache. However, her heartache was because she had missed that once-in-a-lifetime great opportunity. Moreover, the rice that she had cooked was eaten by someone else, and she still had to apologize and apologize. The little girl felt very wronged. It's nothing. It's all in the past. Guan Qinghan forced a smile. She wanted to raise her hand, but she couldn't. It was really too painful. Even the slightest movement would cause a heart-wrenching pain. Sister Qinghan, does it hurt? Duga Xiaoyi stammered for a long time. Seeing that Guan Qinghan didn't move at all, she couldn't help but ask curiously, Sister Qinghan, does it hurt? Cough, cough, cough. Guan Qinghan blushed and looked at her. How could she answer this question? No matter how she answered it, it wouldn't be right. Sister Qinghan, actually, even if you don't answer me, I know that it must be very painful, right? Sister Qinghan, you've suffered. Duga Xiaoyi said with some sympathy. He hit you, right? He hit me? Guan Qinghan's beautiful eyes widened inexplicably. Where did this come from? June Moxie was poisoned, and he wasn't crazy. Why would he hit me? Yes. That day, I also saw Brother Moc's expression.
It was too scary.
He must have hit you. It's all my fault, Duga Xiaoyi said with some absent-mindedness. It was obvious that she wanted to say something, but didn't dare to say it. Guan Qinghan finally understood. It turned out that this little girl didn't understand anything. Just now, she thought that, however, her courage was a little too big. How could she dare to ask anything? Sister Qinghan, can I ask you a question? Duga Xiaoyi saw that Guan Qinghan suddenly smiled. Her heart inexplicably relaxed. She couldn't help but feel relaxed. It was a little bit like her usual unscrupulous self. What question?
You can ask.
Guan Qinghan looked at her tenderly. She couldn't do anything about this little girl. Cough, cough. How did you eat? Is it delicious? Duga Xiaoyi's hands rubbed the corner of her clothes. Her charming face was crimson. She was somewhat embarrassed.
What?
What do you mean, how did I eat? I didn't eat anything. Guan Qinghan looked at her in surprise. Why did this little girl speak so incomprehensibly today? It's Brother Moc, wasn't he cooked by me? Duga Xiaoyi's voice became lower and lower. Her face became redder and redder. She gathered her courage and asked, after that, the cooked rice was eaten by you alone. How did you eat it? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.